We'll have to find out who's going to be attacking, who's going to be the defender. Call to Arms final weekend starts now, and we begin with a best of 7 between LucifroN and MarineLorD.
Off we go on regions. Open map, aggressive. We've seen this a lot in the tournament. And it's going to be interesting to see how these two civilizations match up against each other. Malians, obviously, benefiting a lot from that longevity, the passive resource income, really getting their power spike once they get into Castle Age. Whereas for the Ottomans, we've seen multiple attempts at using these civilization to try and punish the Malians early on, try to finish the game before it even gets to Castle Age.
Absolutely. And someone that we kind of expect to see coming out of the Ottomans time and time again, especially up against civil like the Malians, it's going to be this opening of the military school. That's going to give them the spearmen, and as we know, there's a lot of value because of the housing around the gold mine. Fortunately for LucifroN, he did get a back spawning gold vein here, so it's going to take a little bit longer. MarineLorD's going to want to try to optimize to scout out ahead of the spearmen arriving, or he's probably going to waste time going to the wrong side of the base here.
Yeah, that's a very nicely tucked away gold mine at the back here for LucifroN. And for MarineLorD, it looks like he's just scouting the back of his base right now. So when that first spearman pops out, he's kind of going to be in the blind when it comes to the target of that spearman.
Yeah, and it's interesting, right? Because it's the choice of how they scouted. They both went for a wide coverage first, where they went the long side of the map. That did yield them more sheep, but it typically means that you don't have your scout available to sniff out the openings around 2.5, 3 minutes into the game. You're more delayed. You can see it here, right? Like, look at the map. LucifroN, he does this wide arc. Now he's going to go behind his base on a short lap, and that's going to net him less vision overall, because if he took the small square, he'd have enough sheep that he could afford to be away from his base for like 2 minutes plus for that scout.
Yeah, it's the slower start as well for MarineLorD. He just goes for the military school. Sometimes you see Ottoman players opting to go for a barracks, play a little bit more aggressive in Dark Age. This is more of the slightly slower pace, slightly more conventional Ottoman approaches that MarineLorD is taking. And as you said, he's yet to scout the enemy base here, so this spearman right now is just walking out in blind.
I mean, in fairness, I don't think you can go for the aggressive spearman open here, right? Because like, if you do mass spearman, you're going to be up against Malians, who either go javelins or donzos, and either way, you're losing that fight. So I like that he's just kind of like skimming for free, get his free units out, then tech up fast, because you know the ways you win this as an Ottoman player is either in the feudal age or with a fast castle build. It's never really on dark.
Yeah, I have to agree. The thing is that if you invest into multiple spearmen, the return value is so limited. Sure enough, you torch down a couple of houses, you slow down that passive gold income, but that is not something that justifies delaying your feudal age, investing into a barracks, and then paying full price for these spears. It is just too pricey here.
MarineLorD. I think he did get a few more sheep overall on this map than what LucifroN got, but obviously, you know, LucifroN, MarineLorD, both of these Civs choices aren't as reliant on sheep as others. May I say that, as MLorD still has rogue sheep, shall we say feral sheep, roaming around his lands.
How does a feral sheep look like?
I mean, I don't know, man. Is it like if a werewolf tried to eat its sheep, it didn't finish it, and then it got converted? Like, that would be feral, you know? The were sheep.
All right, looking at the sheeps, it looks like it's a pretty good haul here for LucifroN after all. First spearman now in for MarineLorD. Just now starting to torch down those houses. You see, LucifroN is up to feudal age already, so really, this spearman didn't get any value for itself, at least not up until now.
Yeah, it's kind of weird, right? Like, I can't believe I'm saying this, because I think defensive landmarks and feudal are a toxic element of gameplay, but it almost feels like there needs to be a buff to Malian's defensive landmark, right? Ever since they buffed houses, you never need to build it anymore, because these houses just take simply too long to kill. I think it's like they used to be, was it 300 health, now they're like 400? It's an absurd change that just completely changed the way Malians open the game.
Yeah, when you look back at the old Malian meta, when the houses were so weak, oftentimes you saw players just going for the Saharan trade network as kind of a defensive tower to protect the gold mine. That's no longer a thing. Now it's always Monster Quarry, simply because, as you highlighted, it's extremely difficult to destroy even a single house in Dark Age with the HP that they have right now.
Yeah, it's like it's kind of a weird one, right? Because if they didn't make that change, then if you remember the early days, Malians just lost to Mongols on most maps. It was almost impossible to play. So it was a necessary change. But by doing it, you've essentially just made one landmark feel irrelevant outside of like super cheesy plays.
Looks like it's going to be a Sipahi opening in Feudal Age for MarineLorD. At least that is likely the military score that he shifted to Sipahi production. And it looks like LucifroN is dancing around the hunt over here, just trying to make this a little bit more uncomfortable for MarineLorD, opting to go with a range and also barracks. So we could be in for that combo of the Dunzos and Javelin Throwers, something that we've seen Demu get a lot of success with.
Yeah, it's kind of like this wild thing that we start to see emerge. I think Demu like presented it best, right? This kind of 1-2 punch with Donzo's javelins. It's a very simple, effective, and confusing combo because when you initially engage, you don't know how many jabs you're actually up against because the Donzo's whole spears as well. So like it's kind of disorientating when you first engage, and it's also just a ridiculously efficient army, right? Like someone that's been commented on time and time again is how strong mass ranged is, and Malians have this hybridized unit that other civs don't have access to. The Ottomans aren't completely disarmed, right? Like, there's certain combos they can go into. The Sipahi being queued up for 3. These are fantastic units for their additional attack range compared to normal horsemen. But there's going to be a quick point in this where MarineLorD either tries to mass stables and plays hard into feudal, or immediately decides that castle's his only play. The issue is if you don't address these javelins first, you can't go castle. You'll be blocked out entirely.
Yeah, and when you look at these javelin throwers, their base range is so high, allows you to harass those lumberjacks from a far away distance. They are even more oppressive than longbows were back in the days.
Oh yeah, it's actually annoying because longbows, at least they step in your TC and they die, right? But these guys have free armor. Like, wait, was that town center fire? I thought someone just like blew wind in my direction. I barely felt it.
Second down center coming in here from MarineLorD. Bit of a risky spot over here, if you ask me.
But did he? No, but he didn't see it. He didn't. No, LidaKor. LucifroN. He didn't scout it. Oh my god. But yeah, has he checked? He should know because he should check the stone, right?
Yeah, I think he just missed out on the stone mine. And because you would mine stone anyways with the Ottomans just to make military scores, the mining camp itself isn't an indicator. He needs to check the amount of stone available, and I think now he knows.
It's too little too late. That's crazy to think. If he'd actually just walked right between these trees and spotted that, MarineLorD would have either had to pull all the villages or just cancel it, right? Because these jabs, they sting pretty hard, especially with the Donzo's follow-up. And that DC wasn't in range to be protected by the primary either. Man, and now MarineLorD is essentially a glorified outpost as well, right? Like, you can't walk in between these two tree lines. And as we know, wood is kind of a lifeline for the Ottomans, especially if they need to play long feudal.
If this was any other civilization than Ottomans, LucifroN would have known from the very first moment that the second DC is coming up. Love to see how MarineLorD was able to get this up, though. Crucial moment in this game. If that fails, I think his plan would have fallen apart very quickly. Now, as you said, that down center is also acting as a proxy outpost, and you really see LucifroN struggling to find value for these units right now.
And it's like tough, right? Because now LucifroN is like, okay, I've invested quite a bit. I could try to rush up, but now in some ways I'm on the clock. I either try to all in him, or I need to go back and think about Castle Age. And he could try to like get very aggressive here, though. It's not something we often mention with the Malians, but siege engineering, right? Quite early on for it. But considering how strong his army currently is, like if he can afford one ram, the pressure he'd apply on that TC could shut it down before it gets real value.
Yeah, he's trying to find a new angle over here, but precious moments are being bought here for MarineLorD. Still, MarineLorD's army isn't really pleasant to see. Just one Sipahi on the field, 3 Spearmen, 4 Archers. If LucifroN finds an angle, he could definitely punish here. He's just struggling to really get past these down centers right now.
Dude, that's the thing I was talking about there. It's just the frustration of dealing with Donzos, right? Like, you can't... If you walk in this unit in the blind, you're probably going to lose someone. Almost loses a villager. That was so close. If he either gets the upgrade on the blacksmith or 7th, that's killing each villager. But instead, LucifroN, now applying pressure, takes the opportunity to rush into Castle Age.
Yeah, one of the things that he's been doing so well is limiting the access of MarineLorD to extra food. You see, MarineLorD is depleting the food under a town center rather quickly, and he's confined into his own base. The scout of MarineLorD is back at home as well. MarineLorD's got no idea what exactly LucifroN is doing behind this. I think he probably can sense that the Castle Age is coming just based on the lack of additional units arriving to his base. But still, he's in the blind right now.
But this is so sick, right? Because he could be anticipating it's the greed play. We've gotten really used to seeing the Fulani at this point, but the Farimba, man, that's a whole other piece. One that some players have kind of forgotten about. It's been so long. So in a situation where MarineLorD might feel like he'd normally have the advantage because he's getting army mass, he could find himself heavily discounted by the arrival of waves of 5 troops at the beginning of the CA. Oh, man. I love this from LucifroN. It's just it's so different to what you'd see on a map like Regions, especially.
And a timing element could be crucial. MarineLorD, he's limited on food. If LucifroN times this right, he can starve MarineLorD out as the assault begins.
But look at this. The tech up's coming through. The timing lines up perfectly. LucifroN takes the fight, pushes back. He baits MarineLorD in. We'll try to trade out. Javelin's getting rid of most of the archers. Just a few Donzos remaining. Those are vet Donzos, by the way. So the Sipahi can't afford to be touched here. And LucifroN should eventually lose his army because there's enough Sipahi remaining. There's no denying the price has been high.
The price has been massive over here. Expensive Sipahi going down. A lot of them are heavily damaged as well. Look at this. This is as good as it gets for LucifroN. He traded armies over here, but he can afford to replenish this a lot quicker.
And let's keep in mind, MarineLorD back at home, this isn't your standard Ottoman already being capped on military schools, right? When he left his base, he didn't have a second military school up yet. I'll be curious to see if he's even got that yet. If he hasn't, it's kind of dire tides. He's very early on in his feudal age with his double TC play, right? And if you think about where he placed his TC, I mentioned as a great outpost, but what doesn't it give him, LidaKor? It doesn't give him food. Look at where he's gathering food right now.
Yeah, he's just so deprived of food, and in general, deprived of map control. He's just now starting to expand. But behind this, LucifroN is now turning on the show with the Malians. Now he's got the Farimba garrison rolling, and you see he's sitting at 800 gold per minute. That's going to soon show on the battlefield as well.
This outpost isn't going up. He's going to have to rush it right now, unless he forces the engagement. Good move there from MarineLorD. That was dangerous. Only 2 villagers were building that up. Second wave's coming in, though. He'll at least protect the deer. But damn, look at the damage on this Sipahi now. MarineLorD, I mean, you kind of have to play long feudal, but there's no realm in which you're happy with playing this long feudal now. Like, the Sipahi are now just heavily discounted because of the veterancy upgrades.
Yeah, most of the Sipahi are also coming from the military schools. Takes a long time to build, but they die so quickly to the Donzos. It's not even a matter of mismicroing your cavalry at any time, because the Donzos don't need to be close to the cav to kill them.
And this is the thing, right? Like, now you're going to lose the food source. We talked about behind this. He has got the Madrissa, right? He has also got berries in reserve, but that's limited food. In a situation where the pressure's only going to start mounting up, you need to take a fight while you still have numerical advantage. The Meta, it's a tanky boy, so the Donzos don't target him straight away. Javelins stand their ground. But this wave of Donzos is getting worryingly big, actually. Like, the Archer mass, it feels like it's a little bit slow to pick them off. And if he just gets a second wave of Javelins in here, like, this could just curb the scaling of MarineLorD's army entirely.
There's the +2 range defense for LucifroN, helps a lot in this battle.
He'll at least scare him away. Now, this is important. Like we said, that deer on the front side is everything. It's the world and more for MarineLorD. Because the reality is, whenever you go second TC, it's doubling your food requirement on villages alone, right? And that's before we add in the potential to want to scale Sipahi faster, or the drippings of food you have to feed your archers.
Here comes the new wave of Javelins, and you see MarineLorD has to fall back over here. He has gotten arrow slits on that tower, might even have gotten fortifications, so it's a little bit more reinforced. Gives him a bit of a more breathing room, but it's still a bit of a dicey position to fight in. In fact, tower's gone. I don't think that was torched down. Where did it go?
It got torched down before the fight really clashed in. I think it was on fire as he left, so like there's no way he could save it quick enough.
Yeah,
like,
I totally missed that.
Part. Yeah, it's like he got forced back. Like, he could come forward, but like the problem is he didn't clean up the army, right? So that probe at the beginning could cost him more villages he can't afford at this point. What I'm worried about, by the way, is MarineLorD is camping in his base in a world where LucifroN is now playing the next step of the plan. He's hoovering up relics, and he's also now transitioning into sofas. And the worrying part about this, LidaKor, is like when you go 2 TC like this, and you haven't walled yourself in, there's an exposure point where these sofas can find maximum value because your villages are so far away.
Yeah, as you said, relics are being brought in. That's going to just buff that Farimba garrison even more. And now MarineLorD is on the way to Castle Age. He does have the numbers over here to hold this off, though. I think he might be stabilizing KP.
Yeah, and LucifroN, he's just going to try to get the best trades he can. He needs that second step. He needs to get the sofas across and start raiding the economy to punish this tech up that's going to be coming out from MarineLorD. But LucifroN, the problem is, because he's to his face like this, he's going to hemorrhage more of his primary army. Sipahi diving on him. The Meta is still banging his drums at the backside there. The Donzos never targeted him down. He's going to be pushed all the way back to his base at a critical point where Lucy is now picking up relics.
Yeah, now MarineLorD has the map control. He's chasing this army down over here, and once he gets to Castle Age, LucifroN's going to be in a very, very dicey spot. He's just lacking numbers so badly.
And I'm worried by this as well, right? His sofas, they don't get revealed because they raided. They get revealed in the primary fight. And their trades, like, they're reasonable because they are that heavily armored. But this many Sipahi, especially with the extra melee range, can actually clash with this and come out reasonably, especially when you consider these units didn't cost him a thing. Okay, but
Matter goes down, but still.
Oh.
Numbers are just lacking here for LucifroN. He shifted into the sofas, but they take a lot of time to train. They are expensive, so he really didn't get that numbers advantage that he wanted. Now MarineLorD even pulls back the army, but as you said, he could have fought off these sofas if he wanted to.
I think he was a little bit paranoid about the next wave of troops coming out of Farimba, right? Because that next wave is a bunch of Donzos. You're going to lose a bunch of Sipahis. They're forced to retreat later. So instead, gives over ground. Sofas are going to push forward. We are now seeing the switch up into the Janny boys. And these Janny boys are no joke. They can easily eviscerate the Sofa transition from LucifroN.
Not just the sofas, they do well against the Donzos as well. They're a good general purpose unit. Their base DPS isn't spectacular against infantry, but once you have a Matter buffing them, they are one of the best all-purpose range units in the game.
And this is just such a great read from MarineLorD. Like, the other reason he gets away with Janissaries is because LucifroN threw away too many Javelins. If there was a lot of Javelins here, building Janissaries is like genuinely just holding an ice pick in front of your eye and telling your opponent to hammer it home, right? Like, it's that painful because of how much damage you take. But because he's already addressed the Javelin threat, this ticks all those other boxes you just said, like Donzos plus the Sofas. Now we're in a situation where MarineLorD has the army lead, he has the eco lead, and he's also now trying to block out the remaining relics. These relics are going to be critical for LucifroN, because we have to remember he did go for Farimba build here.
Yeah, one of the big things here is that MarineLorD has been on 2 DCs, which is not the obvious way to play Ottomans. So he's kind of offsetting that passive resource income differential that LucifroN has an advantage from by having these extra villagers. And you see, when you look at the eco, it's just slightly better for LucifroN, but of course MarineLorD has all those free units popping out of the military schools. And now the population is heavily in the favor of MarineLorD, 113 against just 77.
And another thing to think about is, like, you might believe these relics are a really big deal, but what I want you to be conscious of is the fact that LucifroN, he's only on 2 pit mines right now, right? So he got these relics, but he's missing out on his 3rd pit mine. It's essentially balancing out where a Marlin player normally would be at this stage in the game, which means that this huge eco deficit in terms of villages is starting to hit home, especially when you add in the fact that MarineLorD, of course, has the free production out of those military schools.
LucifroN looking to intercept some villagers, and he's been doing that so well, always finding these low HP vills, managed to kill 4 villagers with very limited raids in the last few minutes.
It's just tough, right? Like, MarineLorD is walled off the east side. He's concentrated his forces on the west. There's no easy pinch point here. You know, MarineLorD still has a lot of Sipahi that can mirror your movements. He's just prepping for a death push. You can see it now, right? More Jannies, men-at-arms being added in. I think this is now going to turn into a race for a keep drop around the center, right? Because gold is going to be critical for both these formations at some point. And it's also going to give them map controls a knock-on effect.
Army numbers looking better and better for LucifroN, though. He is starting to push up here. He's mixing in some archers. I don't think he's gotten poison arrows just yet, but that could definitely be a direction towards which he's going to start heading very soon. Ottoman archers should do well against that, though, as it looks like MarineLorD is actually looking to take this fight.
Yep. He's ready to full divide in. He's got the men-at-arms chasing forward as well. The Janissaries, there's just so many gunpowder units here. And also, check out that mill. It body blocks the opportunity for Sofa to run around the backside. They have to clash on the front end. And it's the front end that you don't want to be a part of. I mean, these Jannies, they found decent bang for buck. Meanwhile, the expendable units on the front side of the Ottomans still hold, but LucifroN is forced to fall back.
Just look at the destroyed value at the bottom left. So much better for MarineLorD now. That has been an extremely cost-effective fight for him. And now, as he's looking to save the archers, he might just sacrifice the Sofa.
Man, that is actually bold the way MarineLorD played this. Did you see that? He pulled Sipahi from his frontline formation to go raid the back. He took this fight without the full-fledging power of his army, and yet still he takes a decisive victory, pushing back against this. LucifroN now fully entering turtle mode. This is entering danger territory here, right? He doesn't have any sort of key play ahead of him to stabilize. His resources are being stretched extremely thin, and MarineLorD is now pushing for a scenario where he could end up with double the military in the field.
Yeah, now he's got a lot of military schools working. You see, he's now grabbing the remaining blacksmith upgrades as well. Now he's going to have a tech advantage, and he does have a definitive numbers advantage right now. At least LucifroN does have 4 relics, but as you said, he's starting to run low on gold otherwise. So sustainability is a big question right now for LucifroN.
Yeah, and has he got the poison still? I don't think I saw it queued up at any stage. Like this is dire straits. If you take a fight now without the poison, sure the archers address the janissaries, but what's meant to kill the men at arms? Like that, I'm seeing that number, LidaKor. That number's getting big. That number's getting scary, and things are getting more than a little bit hairy for LucifroN.
Yeah, look at all the upgrades coming in for MarineLorD. He now feels like he's in the driver's seat. He's no longer just full prioritizing army. He's starting to grab some eco upgrades as well, getting the remaining blacksmith upgrades going. And now if you look at the ecos, MarineLorD does have a definitive advantage. Even gets a beautiful mangonel shot in here.
And he baits him in before he can reach it. He's using the stone outcropping as a natural defense point here. The mangonel just holding these archers hostage as they end up the front side of the formation. Tower spam going up. LucifroN just trying to protect himself. The janissaries will be able to get in range. He needs to pull these villies back. Even if this tower goes up, it's not going to last long enough. Men at arms now hitting onto it. The front line is folding fast, and LucifroN will surrender over. MarineLorD, what a turnaround to take game one.
It all comes down to that second town center not scouted in time. LucifroN was so close to it. He could have possibly even stopped it. But once MarineLorD got that going, he just had such a strong position to play from. And LucifroN was never really able to punish that. He never really was able to cut into the eco. And you can just see how MarineLorD started to pull ahead on the villager count at least. His Castle Age timing was way slower than LucifroN's, but he held on for quite a while against the Castle Age army from LucifroN. Meant that he was able to start turning on the Ottoman powerhouse, get the Janissaries going, and from there LucifroN just had no second option.
Yeah, and you know, LucifroN, I give him points for boldness, if nothing else. He went for a strategy that was very much a timing attack, right? When you go Farimba like this, it's not the Farimba it used to be because of how much better Fulani is long-term now. So it puts you on the clock to make something happen. And it's crazy to think just a few critical moments where things could have been different, right? So for example, if LucifroN's able to scout the movement onto the deer a little bit sooner, maybe get some critical damage done after Castle Age. Even before that, you mentioned around that town center, the unpredictable town center. If that had been scouted, we are looking at an entirely different game, one where MarineLorD's early game is cripples and LucifroN gets to do whatever he chooses. But ifs, buts, and maybes, I mean, ifs and buts, I like cookies and nuts, but I haven't got time for any of them. Instead, I've just got time for more games because in game number 2, LidaKor, we're going to be treated to China versus HRE, an all too familiar matchup for Holy Island.
Boy, oh boy, on to Holy Island we go. Gotta say, I know I'm a little biased over here, but this is one of my favorite maps, and I was so upset that we didn't get to see it at a single time when I was casting in this event. So this is gonna be a first to me here in Call to Arms looking at Holy Island, but HRE Chinese, two powerhouse civilizations on this map. LucifroN opting to go with one of his own home maps instead of trying to pick someone from the opposing player, which has started to become more and more common in the previous rounds of Call to Arms.
Yeah, I feel like players, they're kind of doing it. I mean, one, because, you know, when you go multiple games down, it's very dangerous because if you, for example, played into your opponent's better maps, what you end up with is like a situation where they can potentially go 2 up and then they can like throw away a weird civ. And by doing that, they can completely screw with the formatting of how you're countering out different civs on different maps, right? So instead, it makes a lot of sense when you end up one step behind, just try and take your strong foot forward, take control again and get even. Because I've noticed, and you probably seen it over the history of AoE4, like when someone gets a 2-game lead, they do something funky. They might, for example, I don't know, pick a Bastards on mountain clearing as a crazy example. Probably not that crazy. They do something that would force you to expend a strong civ and then look weaker in the final 2 games of the set.
Yeah, that's something that we've seen in the Micro Wars tournament, the arena one that was hosted by Corvinus a couple of times. You could see the mind games kind of representing the mindset of players in many cases. When you have a 3-0 lead, you're willing to, quote-unquote, just step back from a game, forfeit a weak civilization, because you know that your opponent has to commit something strong, as they simply cannot afford to lose another game. That's kind of the same mindset over here, especially when you have a best of 7. As you said, when someone goes up 2-0, 3-0 in a best of 7, they can start playing these mind games knowing that the opponent has to win every single game.
You know what I'm reminded of is like, it was one of the earlier tournaments in AoE4's history, and it was a Mongolian Heights game, and MarineLorD himself, like he threw away a Bastards, and his opponent was forced to use Mongols. That's the type of stuff I'm talking about, right? Like, why would you pick a Bastards on Mongolian Heights? Tweaks Monocle, or like especially release Mongolian Heights, right? It's weird. And it's literally, you watched, he played like 8 minutes of that game, and it was already over. But what it done is it hopped forward and gave him an advantage in the next one. But like I said, players, they've gotten really crafty at spotting this. I will say, like, LucifroN, Vortex, MarineLorD, they were 3 of, like, the first 10 that I think started to regularly use that kind of sneaky trick. LucifroN and Vortex especially have a history of doing that in, like, the first 2 games of a set to just completely disrupt the flow. And as a person who comes from a game that, like, drafting is king, because, like, I originate from Dota, and, like, drafting is, like, its own whole game there. I respect that we're getting to a stage, especially with the expansion pack on the horizon, where drafting is becoming an entirely different subgroup of the Age of Empires 4 competitive experience.
It is a tradition in AoE in general. You look back at AoE 2
Yes.
especially, it's critical how you draft your civilizations and how you line them up for certain maps. And as you said, with the DLC coming up with new civilizations on the horizon, we'll see a lot more, or like at least a couple more reasonable combinations. Obviously, it remains to be seen how the brand new civilizations will, like, for instance, the Japanese will fare on some of these maps. But the thing that's actually intriguing is how the slightly adjusted civilizations, the variant civilizations, will work out. Because when you look at a map like this, let's say Holy Island, if HRE is powerful, then an HRE variant is likely going to be a reasonable pick here as well. But it gives you a tool or a set of tools that is slightly different from the HRE, could make this matchup a lot more different than what you would have with ordinary HRE.
So what you're saying is more civs, more things. That's what I got from that LidaKor. Deep analysis in prep for game number 2. MarineLorD leads the set by 1. That's the best of 7, baby. We got some way to go.
It is Holy Islands, and we do have this matchup previously played by MarineLorD, at least in the quarterfinals. Holy Island, he played HRE against Demus Chinese, won with the HRE. This time around, he himself is going to be playing Chinese, and LucifroN will be in command of the HRE.
And it's a comfortable position for LucifroN to be in. In fact, LucifroN Vortex, I think they've actually regularly showed some of the best HRE gameplay I've seen all year on Holy Island. But I'm going to throw a curveball there. If there's one player in this kind of like pool right now for Holy Island specifically that I think has shown he understands the Civ inside out, it has to be MarineLorD, right? That game against Dimu is a pristine example. The turnaround, the way that he was able to bounce back on land. It shows the permutations that exist with this Civ and how much it can actually get done on hybridized maps. So I'm curious to see how we're going to approach that mid game with these 2 players. Something historically LucifroN and Vortex love to do. They were the 2 that really innovated it. Was the idea of like 5-minute arms early on to dive into the eco line, and they found great success with that particular strategy against Chinese players.
That's an interesting point, and I kind of like that approach, to be honest. This is one of those maps where you really have to nail that land-water balance, and if you can throw off the land play of the opponent, then you can gain yourself an upper hand on the water and just snowball the game out of control. And one of the civilizations that can definitely accomplish that is HRE. You have this powerful economy, especially fueled by the food eco, and of course the prelates as usual. It allows you to pump out those men-at-arms that you mentioned. And Chinese isn't a civilization that's traditionally associated with a lot of feudal age units, at least not in early feudal age. So oftentimes you will find the Chinese player with very limited tools available to hold off those men-at-arms.
Yeah, and you can also bolster the initial income to get a few men-at-arms out with all that extra food you've got. You don't want to do it too early against the Chinese because of the gunpowder ability they have on their TC, right? The hand cannon slits actually sting hard. But, I mean, I just thought about this. Like, what is it with Adney and his obsession with sheep, right? Like, every Adney map we've ever had, like, there's a lot of sheep. Like, I think other maps is kind of free-range sheep, but these are they called Bowery sheep? Or am I thinking of someone else there? Bowery sheep sounds like someone different, right? But, like, I think is it 28? Like, is 28 the normal? And I think Adney usually has over 30, if I'm not mistaken.
It's a lot more, and when you look at these 2 civilizations, these are civs that benefit from it even more than many other civs do. Chinese, of course, having the extra drop-off, and then HRE, they deplete their sheep rather quickly, so having a bunch of extra sheep to work with is definitely a benefit. Looks like we will have a tower play over here, and oh man,
wait.
Both gold mines are close to each other.
Lida, do that the appropriate justice it deserves. Looks like we're going to have a tower rush here. in a game with the Chinese. But wait, it's not the Chinese player doing the rush. It's the HRE.
We talked about this in the pregame. If you're LucifroN, you want to throw off the opponent at least a tiny bit. Just break the conventionality of this initial part of the game. And look at this.
Wait, oh, we're getting greedy here. That's overly greedy. He's like, if I can build it on top of the TC, he can't do anything. Like, whoa. Calm down, Rambo, the villager, the first. All right? Let's draw this back a bit. It's going to be a little bit annoying on the wood line, but it's not the end of the world for MarineLorD. The frustrating part is the lack of gold. Check how much gold he has accessible right now. He can tax his way up, but that's going to take a while.
Yeah, there's a gold mine to the south as well, but it's wide open and definitely a place where LucifroN can harass. So this is a great angle to attack from for LucifroN. He's cutting off MarineLorD from basically all accessible gold, except for that one very exposed deposit to the south.
Now, this is reminiscent of last game. I don't want to do it to LucifroN like that, but like, get where I'm going with this. Last game, we saw LucifroN kind of set the tempo. MarineLorD looked like he was on the back foot. It looked like it was going to be a critical slap, and it didn't hit as intended. So now, highlighting that fact, I bring the question, how does MarineLorD dig his way out of a potential hole here?
This is tricky, KP. Issue is that he's lacking gold. You see, he's at 153, and he just took away, I think, all the tax from the lumber camp. He doesn't even have a mill. So right now, he just cannot go up to Feudal Age. He's going to have to migrate to this southern gold mine here. Remains to be seen if LucifroN actually keeps track of that, though.
Oh, wow, that's wild. LucifroN, like, he's so focused on going for blood, he commits all the spin in one location. This is going to backfire because the tower's rushed up. And you got to ask the question now, like, LucifroN, did you need 4 spearmen here? Right, once you saw there was no Rax play from MarineLorD, could you have split 2 off and tried to look for that other gold vein? Because if we check LucifroN's vision, I'm damn well certain he's seen it.
He should.
Please.
He definitely should. He's looping around.
No! Oh, this explains so much. That is so painful.
I feel like it's just a deja vu, KP. Same thing as the previous game. Just a tiny bit late to obtain that critical piece of information he needed for his strategy to work. Previous game, it was the second TC being denied or not being denied. Here it's that gold mine taken away. And MarineLorD was smart. He dropped the tower first before he even started building a mining camp. So now it's extremely difficult to punish for LucifroN. And he's actually going to be very late to Feudal Age compared to MarineLorD, meaning that it's going to take a lot of time for Men-at-Arms to arrive to start torching that down.
Questions are going to be asked in review the first few minutes of this game. Did LucifroN need to hold that scout there? Did he need to stay as long as he did? Or could he have looked for this sooner? Should he have sniffed it out? Because the reality is he did scout his side of the map and he saw 4 small gold veins. When he scouted that north side of MarineLorD's base, count it for me. 1, 2, 3. The 4th one, it was always missing from the battlefield somewhere. And, you know, I don't know if it was kind of tunnel vision or just an outright slip-up, but either way, there's no denying. MarineLorD comes out better for this. He now has a tech-up advantage. Remember, China also build their ships faster. Lucy's going to have to go turtle mode on the water side. Like, I wouldn't even be objective against the idea of getting arrow slits. And if we check the Archon's placement, that might be his intent here.
It tells you a lot that he was rushing that Archon with 15 vills. That's how critical it was for him to keep track of MarineLorD's Feudal Age timing. But as you said, MarineLorD already has a galley and a war chunk coming through towards his side. LucifroN is yet to get the first combat vessel out. At the very least, there is going to be some idle time on these fishing boats.
No. We have a problem, boys. LucifroN, he's building Men-at-Arms. So there's only 1 Spearl coming out so far. He also hasn't gone the stone. It's kind of wild. I thought maybe it'd be worthwhile for LucifroN to go stone to get his emplacements, because then he could just try to go for a land all-in while having his fishing somewhat protected. Now he has to pivot his interest in 2 locations from a position where he's behind.
And you see these gold miners aren't even buffed by a prelate, so he isn't really getting the maximum benefit from the HRE here. Whereas when you look at MarineLorD, he is supervising multiple lumber camps. He's got an untouched fishing eco, the better production rate. Now Song Dynasty on the way with the Barbican being built. And LucifroN even lost his only scout out there. Things seem to start falling apart for LucifroN here, I'm not gonna lie.
Oh man, is this... He's hard on the stone. So he's gonna look to maybe go for some outpost shenanigans. Like, I don't think he's thinking in placements on the defensive. Doubt we're going to see any like 2 TC play. You don't need that when you got fishing. But like, I could see a world in which he tries to snake an outpost or drop a dock right next to LucifroN's and emplacements himself.
Yeah, quite possibly. But right now, MarineLorD is happy with the status quo. You see, he's no longer pushing the fishing eco from LucifroN anymore. He's just sitting back, defending. Wouldn't be shocked to see him make an attempt to try and take down the tower to the north at some point. Right now, it's garrisoned by spears, but given that this gold mine is still exposed and LucifroN wants to harass it, at some point, I think MarineLorD needs to liberate those gold mines to the north.
You say that, you know, he could do a lot with 4K gold in a game like this. There's no denying that LucifroN's the one more likely to make an overly aggressive move at this stage. MarineLorD, for the time being, putting it all to work, massing sprinkled chips. Mr. Taxman, sing me a song. Song Dynasty. He's going to be able to get away, though. He's fine.
Yeah, he's
Like
more
those
than
men at
fine.
arms. There's no blacksmiths, right? Yeah, so like that's kind of an issue for LucifroN, is he's scaling his men at arms, but we haven't even reached a point where he's dropped the blacksmiths yet, which is critical because no undermesh, no marching drills, and you're in a position where you're trying to boom up to like 10 MAA. It leaves you a bit immobile.
He's playing a defensive game. He does have enough sprinkled ships to hold this off. So for the time being, he's keeping his eco intact, and they are neck and neck when it comes to the villager count. You feel like LucifroN is still in this, but he needs something that breaks the stalemate. Maybe a fast castle, try to get the Ragnitz Cathedral going, start picking up those relics, but I feel like for him, the win condition is no longer in feudal, and now you see him starting to bank up those resources.
Oh, he's massing demos, so like he's banking resources, but he needs to peel some of this naval force to be safe to do that, right? So I like the fact that he's just going like for the all-in play. This is dangerous, though. We've seen people get ridiculously good at microing against demo ships. LucifroN is one of those players that's scary in this environment, though. If he times a land attack with his naval assault, there is only a handful of players that will not crumble under that type of pressure from a player like LucifroN, even when he's behind.
Yeah, now marching drills on the way. Looks like LucifroN will stay in feudal here, massing more men-at-arms, more demos on the way. And we talked about this. MarineLorD doesn't have a lot of land units right now. He's just now starting to make true canoes. And this could work out for LucifroN here, KP.
It's a tough one. He needs to get a good hit with those demo ships. They're pushing forward now. There's not many junks here to defend. Only 2 archer boats, third one being added in. And I can't help but feel LucifroN kind of revealed his hand early there, right? Because now MarineLorD knows how hard you are into demos, how this is an all-in play. He's getting vital minutes on his side to scale an appropriate defense against this.
I feel like he felt like he needed to go right now. He started to see the true canoes coming out. He still has a window to harass these gold miners and just try to get a ship lead based on MarineLorD not having enough gold to build more. But I don't think that this is enough unless those demos land some big shots.
I don't like this. This is like, it just feels like you've revealed it and you have to go now. Just, if he holds him off for 2 minutes, the investment into demos is going to be counted out. And at that stage, LucifroN's playing a Civ that's initial resource bank is its strongest pull, right? Once you get out of the Arcan influence, you don't benefit from that buff anymore. You get slowed down against a Civ that's escalated in different ways via its production speed on water and its taxing as well. Like, there's no denying it. The longer this goes, the more it's looking in MarineLorD's favor.
And look at that, Chukunu now hit the gold mine over here. No defenders at all for LucifroN.
Well, meanwhile, the archer ships, they pivot around the side. They're now going to be targeted down. Demos on the ramp. LucifroN gets the heavy hit. The hit that he needs, but now he needs to push it and push it fast. He's raided on land. He's going to be blocked out there. MLord has enough breathing room to retreat, and his junk count, despite that wallop, is still high.
Oh, LucifroN didn't recognize that the villagers are being killed, though. Both players are distracted onto 2 sides of the map.
Mr. Springle ship, like, I defect. Like, paint me like one of you, like one of your French girls. I want to be an HRE boy now. Demo's coming in. Nice peel there. Minimizes the damage completely. Now can turn around for the fight on the defensive. LucifroN, because he invested so much into demo ships, like this is the baited feeling of it, right? You got a good hit with your demos, but that unit hits and then disappears. So now you're in a situation where Springle ship count is even. You don't feel as strong as you should.
It's very deceiving. He got some good hits with the demos because MarineLorD was distracted on the land, but at the same time, now LucifroN lost some eco on the land as well, and if he loses track of his own fleet, MarineLorD is going to punish as well. You see, both the players struggling to keep track of all of their units as these men-at-arms do get cleaned up way too easily, KP.
Yeah, it's getting worrying. How long can you rely on them? Like the Chiganu mass, if it reaches, say, 20 at any stage, I don't think you can reach a men-at-arms count that feels comfortable, because if you do get that high in a number and you're not doing anything with them, what was the point in building them, right? So, like, LucifroN has this harder position where he has to do things constantly with his MAA to make the investment feel worthwhile. Because if we do get into mass versus mass, there's a reason why ranged always seems to kick the crap out of melee. Just turn these boys into porcupines, don't mind us.
Yeah, Chukunu numbers slowly increasing for MarineLorD now. He's not there just yet when it comes to the critical mass to just one-shot these men-at-arms, but at the pace he's building up the Chukunu, he's soon going to get there.
Demo ship mass again getting big for LucifroN. Meanwhile, MarineLorD, just a few archer ships to defend here. He shows them on the front side. They're not going to last long there. They are going to be target down. Demo's now blocked out by LucifroN's own front line. They're going to rush through, but that's dangerous. A dangerous play here with one archer ship still in play. Peels off the ships to minimize the casualties. MarineLorD on the defensive. His fishing is now starting to be exposed, but it's also on land that I'm more worried about. There's way too many villagers out here. The men-at-arms are going to have a field day.
Oh, it's so chaotic now, and I highlighted this before. This gold mine is still very exposed, and this is the only gold mine MarineLorD has access to. Those demos didn't get any massive benefit, but they were a great diversion to allow these men-at-arms to do more eco damage. And MarineLorD's access to the gold is now getting very dicey, KP.
LucifroN, he did have gaps in his gold gathering as well because there's raids. He's moving out again, but you can see he doesn't save much in reserve either. So it's kind of a weird dance back and forth. But the MAA count, it's getting bigger, right? The Chuganu count is not escalating because MarineLorD's losses on water force him to reinvest there. But the archer ships on the front side, completely ignored. They block out practically all the demo damage. And LucifroN now, with a much smaller fleet, needs to think about backing up.
Big difference between the Chukunu and the men-at-arms is that the men-at-arms can commit against towers. LucifroN can torch this one down. MarineLorD still hasn't dealt with the tower to the north of his base. He doesn't have access to gold anymore.
And you have to wonder, like, was there a stage where he could save for one ram, right? Just build up one Chiganu and knock it out. Probably. But once again, ifs and buts. And I'm allergic to nuts. So instead, we're going to focus on the fact that MarineLorD is getting very close to a castle-age situation, which is why every loss on water forcing a gold reinvestment is stinging his timing.
And LucifroN is getting better and better demo hits again. MarineLorD has to deal with that land aggression, cannot always look at his fleet, and every once in a while, LucifroN is able to sneak in a lovely demo.
That start step from that last demo was lovely, by the way. Do you see that the arrow ship tried to shoot, and he just start stepped it? Like a small, like half a tile shift to the left side, blocked the entire shot. We got a little Neo on the naval side here. Small differences like that are what is costing MarineLorD dearly because of that distraction, that split attention you mentioned. And finally, we are going to get that ramp, but it's so late in that it's definitely found its value, right? The outpost sure is going to be heading to the rubble remains soon, but it done what it needed to.
Yeah, and just look at the eco balance, or, well, lack thereof. MarineLorD just had to sell a bunch of his food, but he's now going up to Castle Age here. A risky call under so much pressure, but could actually work out, especially if he can start mixing in some palace guards and start harassing LucifroN on land.
Well, I like it from MarineLorD because the logic here is so far he's been holding, but that there's chip damage done, right? There's a slight advantage eking with each of these engagements in points for LucifroN. So he doesn't want to reach that point where it's a flood of danger. He wants to strike before then, while the iron's hot. So this is a great move, but the diver's coming in. His limited defense is here to protect him. Dive on water as well. Demo's going to move in. He's standing his ground. MarineLorD doesn't pull back. MarineLorD see their opportunity. They dive forward. More demos to follow this up, and heavy damage done to the fleet from MarineLorD. He needs to hold. He needs at least a minute of breathing room, but it will not be given to him. LucifroN, with the wallop on the demos, doing heavy damage, but the production of the Chinese boat is too damn fast.
LucifroN is doing such a great job combining this land aggression with the naval aggression. MarineLorD, he couldn't avoid all those demos because he's just so distracted on two sides. And look at that, new demos coming in as well. MarineLorD, he's losing out on the water now. There is just insane momentum going on for LucifroN now.
I mean, this feels like it's the beginning of the end, right? The demo ships, there's a Congo line of death, one way or the other. Even though the bombers die, well, they take a few with them. But either way, the fishing has been completely idled out. MarineLorD has no access to food. His wood line is in peril. There's nowhere to go from here, surely.
And there's no gold. He is still without gold, KP. That's why he cannot reinforce the water anymore. He is just losing the remains of his fleet. And it looks like LucifroN is very close to evening this series out.
And the GG comes in. All hail the Lord of the Seas. He floats all the way from Spain, but once he gets in position, I don't think any country can match him here. Evens the score up, 1-1 apiece. As soon as we were like, hey, is MarineLorD getting a bit too cozy here? LucifroN reminds us why he's got so many wins under his belt.
You cannot understate the significance of that initial tower. That cut MarineLorD off from all accessible gold but one deposit. And LucifroN kept exploiting that open deposit throughout Feudal Age, kept pushing in the men-at-arms, and every time he harassed MarineLorD there, he also brought in the fleet. He was rewarded with so many good demo hits because MarineLorD had to put out so many fires at the very same time.
And it's something that we've highlighted. LucifroN and his bro are, in particular, phenomenal at. Like, I honestly want to say, like, easily top 3 between the two of them. Not as a combo package. I mean, independently, they took 2 of those spots. They've proven it time and time again. I think Holy Island has to be one of the most potent maps of all. And you see exactly why. Like, even a player like MarineLorD, who's considered, I'd say it's fair to say, like, #1 still at the moment. It's bare minimum #2. He looked like he was lost. He was a headless chicken in this game. And it turns out LucifroN's a big fan of KFC.
It's crazy to think that there are maps where even the best of the best cannot always keep track of everything that's going on. But that's reality, and that's why Holy Island is such a lovely map. So many things happening at the same time, just non-stop action at 2, oftentimes 3 different spots. And you just lose track of your fleet for a brief moment, you could lose the game. LucifroN now with 1 point on the board, as we will head to Canal with MarineLorD's first home map selection.
Yeah, and some people might question, like, why didn't we see someone like English out in Holy Island? This is exactly why. Saving it for Canal is a great place to whip it out. LucifroN still has the option for English. For him, it's a little bit more versatile, and like some people might consider something like mountain clearing for the English. Especially now that he doesn't have the HRE. But he also does frequently play English on Dry Arabia, so still keeping an eye out for that. But for MarineLorD, it had to be one of the two, right? Canal or Holy Island was where he's going to whip out his. We've seen this matchup a decent amount. It's a bit tricky for the Ottomans because if you misalign your timings or invest a little bit too much into Spearmen, you can be blocked out by just 2 or 3 Lombos. So this early first 3 or 4 minutes, as it often is on Canal, is going to be especially interesting to watch.
It is. It's a map where you have an extended Dark Age for a long time, or at least in many cases. English, they work well in that department. They do have access to the men-at-arms, though they don't have access to the spears, something that is a crucial weakness against the Civ like Mongols, let's say. But against Ottomans, you do have the men-at-arms to work with, you do have the bows on the villagers, you will have that opportunity to build up the dock in the middle. Ottomans, of course, they do have the military school, but this is one of those maps where you could technically justify playing into the barracks and the spearmen as well for the Ottomans. So those initial choices for LucifroN will be crucial, especially because English is a meta civilization pick on this map. Ottomans,
Yes.
maybe not so much. So in many ways, it is up to LucifroN to kind of break this English dominance on Canal.
Yeah, there's some interesting kind of permutations in this matchup, right, in the first few minutes alone. Because, like, for example, one big defining detail is where you place your racks as an Ottoman player. So we've seen the past Ottoman players come out and place their racks near their dock. But if your opponent pulls like 2 or 3 villages at the beginning, which the English can do justifiably, they could just rush up, shoot you down, and you've got no racks to work with. So curious to see how LucifroN wants to open this. Maybe the military school first at home and then a racks follow-up we've seen sometimes. That's been especially popular on, it feels like, Golden Heights at the moment. But once again, you know, we've watched a bunch of games where someone has scaled 10+ spearmen as the Ottomans. And if you're going to do that, you need to completely take water. Like, you can't half see it because just 4 Lombos will wipe out that entire army. And if you're up to 10 spearmen that early in the game, I can guarantee you didn't get them all for free.
Well, we just have 13 seconds left to go. It's 1 apiece right now between MarineLorD and LucifroN. The last time that these two have met in the semifinals was Elite Classic. MarineLorD won that set 4-1. That set started with a 3-0 lead to MarineLorD, though. Not so much for this one. Right now it's 1 apiece. Let's see who grabs the advantage heading into game number 3.
So what you're saying is we're not going to get that kind of speedy stomp. So maybe still MLorD favored, who knows? But like maybe we get 7 games. We'll have to find out.
Perhaps.
Yeah. Well, It's going to be an interesting one to see how Canal plays out. Strong sieves thrown out on both sides, but MarineLorD, like, I still think the English have a little bit of an edge here, and they see Almonds do something off the cuff. I'd love to see that from LucifroN. I'd love to see him be able to take the lead, because as you just highlighted, MarineLorD, every time it feels like these two match up, he's the one leading the sets. Let's see if LucifroN can change the way that history echoes out.
Yeah, Barracks coming up on the front line over here for LucifroN. The dock kind of plays backward-ish, not really ideal for long-term fishing, but it's also one that's essentially guaranteed to go up, especially given that MarineLorD is opening with Man-at-Arms himself.
Okay, but this is where, like, I wouldn't have minded a Rax first, because this is a bit of a roll of dice. Like, what LucifroN done here is secretly genius. He hid the Rax behind the tree line. That's intentional. But the way it usually works is if you dock first, your opponent's like, oh, it's a dock. And then you Rax behind the tree. They don't know it's happened at all. But this has played out even better than I would have expected. MarineLorD, he went for the sniff out. He doesn't see that aggressive dog you were talking about. And now he has to assume this is just a Rax at home.
Yeah, he does not know about that Rex coming up, and he has his own barracks back at home, so reinforcing these battles in the middle area will be a little more difficult for him. But he does have the Men-at-Arms, which is a great unit to deal with initial Spearmen.
Yeah, you have to get additional Spearmen over to beat the Men-at-Arms out. And that is going to take a little bit of time. But, like, if this turns long-term and they just keep investing, like, there's kind of an edge where Lucy can get by the fact that it's easy to access the wood with your opening builds compared to the gold, because when you MAA like this and you try to go docks, you're not looking to move out to a mining camp at first. Let's see how it works out. I mean, the Men-at-Arms, I'm curious. Can we check the vision? Because this is going to be important. If he, like, hits the north side of the dock, he might not see the spears. I don't think it's going to matter, actually. Hello!
Surprise! Here come the spears.
Get out of here.
See, 2 Men-at-Arms against 2 spears. That's a good matchup for MarineLorD, but don't forget, the Men-at-Arms are also a lot pricier, and they do cost you gold as well. So once we get to the stage where you have to think about Feudal Age, missing out on this gold, having to invest it for MarineLorD, is definitely a disadvantage compared to LucifroN.
Yeah, and that's why you saw MarineLorD not scout further. Like, he had min-maxed his range. He needed to start returning to get the sheep dropped off. Otherwise, he'd start to drain himself of food at home. Because remember, like, we're doing an opening where you don't get docks, right? You secure the water side first with your mass Men-at-Arms. 100 food a pop, that's a premium unit and a half in Dark Age. That is 2.5 per sheep.
It's a very pricey investment over here for MarineLorD. He's up to 5 Men-at-Arms. He's kind of building those up just so that he can strike all at once and torch down the dock, but this is an extremely pricey investment, and if this doesn't work out for MarineLorD, he's going to be in a very tough spot.
It's kind of a bait for MarineLorD to a certain extent, because like what you're trying to do is these Men-at-Arms will have a conversion point. But in the meantime, every time you build an extra Men-at-Arms, LucifroN has to build at least 1 additional spears. And what did we highlight about the English-Ottoman matchup? Once you go feudal, if your opponent's built too many spears, he just essentially, you've given him the rope to hang himself, right? Because like a handful of Lombos will win you the game.
That's a great point, actually. If you think about it, these Men-at-Arms will retain value going into Feudal Age. Spearmen, not so much, unless the English player goes for cavalry, which is essentially never, especially on this map. So
yeah, let me check. Is the English player, his name begins with M, but it's not Mr. Yeah, no cavalry. LidaKor, no cavalry.
Nope.
Shout out to our Greek boy. I think he's like the only player I see frequently do that horseman opening. So
there was a renaissance of the Abbey of the Kings at one point where you had a lot of players playing around with that, but everybody is back to the longbows once again. And you see, LucifroN realizes that he's facing way too many Men-at-Arms. He cannot really fight this one, but he kind of needs to if he doesn't want to lose the dock.
Dude, this is so great from MarineLorD. He's like, right, if you won't fight me, I'm just going to commit. I'm going to force a fight, because now I see you've been trying to nickel and dime me on the spearman count. So I'm just going to mass Men-at-Arms non-stop now. And the worrying part is because LucifroN waited so long to scale that point, look at the count. If you're even Men-at-Arms to spears, it's going to be an absolute rout in favor of the English.
And if LucifroN doesn't fight this, not only will he lose the dock, he will also lose the barracks. Sure, it's not the most important production building for him in the long run, but it is an investment. It's a pricey investment that he made. He doesn't want to lose out on this position.
Now, keep in mind, MarineLorD, now that he has the numerical advantage with Men-at-Arms, he needs to push it. Because, yes, he has kind of caught LucifroN reaching the cookie jar. but you can't let him keep nibbling at those cookies, right? He has got 2 fishing boats. That is adding into his economy. Given enough time, MarineLorD would run out of sheep, and LucifroN would still have food surplus. So there's definitely timing to this attack. LucifroN, if he starts to scale enough spears, he can invest in the Imam point, and that's when this fight pivots again in favor of the Ottomans.
Yeah, LucifroN keeps adding more spears over here, but you see MarineLorD is piling up gold. He's thinking about Feudal Age at this point, and LucifroN is still not in the position to fight this.
LucifroN he must have the Imam point coming up soon, right? Like 2 more spearmen, I think it is. Like, he needs it. He needs it like yesterday, because this is starting to add up on the pressure. A third of the health of the dock has already been removed. Tech up is now on the way for MarineLorD, and LucifroN still nowhere near ready for that tech up. This is starting to look drastically in favor of the English. Like, you need to take a favorable fight, and there's the Imam point.
Yeah, is it coming too late though, KP? Feudal Age on the way for MarineLorD, and you see, sure enough, you have the Imam out there, but they're not on the field, not on the battlefield just yet. Men-at-Arms keep torching down that dock, and the moment Feudal Age hits for MarineLorD, these spearmen will be so uncomfortable to hold on to.
Exactly. Like, I don't like this now from LucifroN. Like, if the Imams were able to get out earlier, if he scaled more spearmen, it's a great play. But now MarineLorD, like, it's once again, it's a game of baiting, right? It's like you're playing poker right now. It's like, have you got jacks? Like, yeah. Actually, it's more go fish in that way, right? Like, go fish. You got any jacks? Go fish. Because every time they're kind of showing this element of their formation, like, yeah, I've got a few men at arms. You need to just try and, like, build too many spearmen. And LucifroN's like, oh, no, I'm not going to fall for that. Like, you cheeky villain. If I build too many spearmen, you'll just tech up fast. But then you see the pivot back where he just spams men at arms at him, forces the Imam investment. And now, with this tech up coming out, LucifroN will guaranteed be wishing he'd just taken the meta instead.
And you see, MarineLorD is forcing LucifroN to keep track of these forces here. He was actually flirting with the idea of just diving, possibly even the town center. You got 13 men-at-arms. Some of them might die, but I wouldn't have been surprised if MarineLorD went to just try and get some villager kills here. In fact, he might try to do this again.
He is. He's going to try to idle out. It's the best thing he can do. It's too late to stop a tech up. It can still be annoying. It's going to be the Sultani trade network, as you would expect here with fishing accessible for LucifroN. But that fishing isn't going to be accessible for long, LidaKor. This is like the worst matchup to have naval control in. You can't build archer ships, you can't build springle ships, you can't even rely on fishing. Because longbows are OP. Please nerf signed all bronze players ever.
Sure enough, longbows will be able to snipe any combat ships on the river, so LucifroN's going to have a tough time cleaning those up. And you see, as he's getting to Feudal Age, he's yet to start mixing in any Sipahi. He straight up does not have an answer to these longbows coming up.
This is like a little medieval C4 knocking at your door. Just 5 longbows will be enough to start idling you out fully. Get past that, the spearman will get completely brutalized. In fact, LucifroN, he kind of needs to take a fight now, because if this longbow count gets up to like 8, his imams will just be sniped. Longbows for the time being are focused on the spears. Upgrade's going to come through now. MarineLorD holding his ground with those tanky men at arms. He needs to get rid of the imams, though. Longbow shots coming in towards them. You have to wonder, was that maybe a little bit too close, a little bit too quick to take this fight? Because now with the archer ship out, he may have found the return value to push MarineLorD back.
Yeah, MarineLorD does have 8 longbows, but only 3 of them were taking part in this fight. And with the combat ship popping out, MarineLorD had to bail on this. LucifroN will have the opportunity to get the spearman back to full HP, but he could not deny the dock over here correctly. MarineLorD does get the dock up, so he will be able to start pumping out galleys himself.
It's so tough, right, the way that played out. Like, you're trying to snipe out this Imam, and you know you're doing it early, right? 3 longbows is a kind of jump in the gun, but you want to min-max. Any other player, maybe this works against, but LucifroN, easily a top 5 micro in the game. And I can't emphasize how important it is that Imam didn't die. Because if you lose one Imam, the whole strategy falls apart, because they can't heal each other anymore. As long as you keep 2 alive, and they pull back, as we saw there, they pay each other on the head, it's like it never happened. But now in the next fight, things are going to change. LucifroN cannot show these Imam a tool against 10 longbows. He also can't actually fight heavily into Navy against 10 longbows. So it starts to feel like LucifroN needs a transition.
He most definitely needs one. He has dropped 2 stables at the edge of the map, trying to hide it as much as possible from MarineLorD, but Sipahis are expensive, they will take some time to train, and if MarineLorD just mixes in a handful of spears, that will still hold them off for quite a while. MarineLorD is yet to add spears, but for the time being, his army is a lot more promising. 10 men-at-arms, 10 longbows. against just 10 spears and a couple of combat ships.
I mean, I'm trying to figure out what the plan is for LucifroN. Like, is he trying to float enough wood to like double stables drop? It's like, if this is your army comp, you might as well go game 4, right? Because like you can't be the English long-term water. You can't fight against the Lombos either. They'll whittle away at you. It's dicey. Men at Arms getting a little bit ambitious with their dive, but they're going to try to target in onto the fishing boats because they can. The demo ship now moving up water. Lombo's trying to be careful about the position. If this demo hit if it gets a good hit here, it could set the dock on fire, and then that would be the end of the naval life of the Ottomans. The demo does get sniped. Brilliant play there by Lucy.
Yeah, this might be a little too bloodthirsty over here for MarineLorD. He's throwing away all the men-at-arms. Will take the dock down over here, it seems, and he will take down most of the ships as well using the longbows. But he lost a significant portion of his army. Remains to be seen if this was way too overzealous.
Get the longbows away. Get the longbows away. Whew. Okay, he's going to pull back in time. I was getting a little bit worried because I was seeing demos prepped somewhere by LucifroN. I think it was queued up behind what he already had in the dock. But yeah, no denying, that was a heavy throwaway. Like, what was that? 10 men-at-arms, 120 resources each? You see that he does eventually get the docks, but no denying the price is high. The good news for MLorD fans is these lombos still aren't answered. It's now coming through from LucifroN with the stables drop, but it is slow to get in.
Yeah, LucifroN did a terrific job repairing those heavily damaged ships with the fishing boats. He kept them alive for so long, allowed them to take down most of the men-at-arms, even push away the longbows from the riverside. And now, as much as this dock is gone for Lucy, he can rebuild this with ease, and he slowed down this aggression from MarineLorD, and it looks like that lack of food is starting to show for MarineLorD. He does not really have a good fishing eco, has to start making a farm transition.
I feel like MarineLorD would probably benefit from a blacksmith's into range damage upgrade now, and like he needs to plow in. I mean, he needs to be fast, because check LucifroN's resources. Is it me, or does that look like he's done being a feudal peasant?
Oh my lord! This is a gutsy call here by LucifroN under so much pressure, just straight up going essentially naked fast castle. You see, he already built 2 stables, but he didn't use them at all. Just said, okay, I'm going straight castle, but this could work wonders. MarineLorD is in the middle of a farm transition with 2 spearmen out, and we could see LucifroN appearing with a bunch of lancers in the next few moments.
And that's key, right? Because it's going to be a Knight's play. He built the stables, he queued up Sipahi, and then cancelled them because he saw how much food he was bringing back home from the fishing. That was just a brilliant, off-the-cuff, instant knee-jerk pivot out of LucifroN. And now these Lombos, even if they get in, what are they going to do, right? They haven't got enough spearmen here to defend against Knights. You have to wonder, like, that fight around the dockside. Did he need to dive the men-at-arms? Did it need to die right then? Because I think those men-at-arms dying is what convinced LucifroN that he was safe to make this play.
Yeah, Riverside still secure for him. He's starting to run low on fish. He's going to have to move upwards. There's a demo coming.
It's not going to touch deep enough, though. Heavy damage on the fishing, but the galley is on a coffee break right now. What can I say? We're English. We love our tea. The longbows are going to join in, though. That's going to be a heavy hit into the fishing, but he needs to get as much value as possible because there's no doubt in my mind MLorD knows what's on the way. 25 seconds, and then heavy cavalry will be plowing into his bowline.
He needs to push onto this. A couple of fishing boats went down from LucifroN, and he no longer has safe fish to work with. But if he gets a couple of lancers out, he can get a lot of map control here. Good job by MarineLorD with the naval micro, though. Finally pushing away LucifroN's fleet.
Where are you going? Come join us for the evening. Archer ship is going to turn around, hit onto those Lombos again. Now, what I want to see is LucifroN, how many military schools we've got. Because this is an important timing. Castlade really kicks up the production rate of 3 units. That's going to be key to him escalating across the map. Wow, that's a grand total of 0 military schools. Canal. Oh, man, that's... All right, this is going to be dicey, because I'm pretty sure LucifroN must have like sacrificed villager production or something to get all that food together last second to castle up, right? So like, if you don't have passive production behind this, you're not really getting the full power out of your castle age timing.
Yeah, he might have sacrificed a couple of villagers. It's tough to say. The villager differential is minimal between the 2 players, so even if he did, it wasn't massive. It's more about the fact that he went up to feudal age with the Sotahani trade network. He no longer has access to fish. And MarineLorD is done with his farm transition. LucifroN is yet to make that. So I don't know how long LucifroN can sustain pumping out these pricey knights. He's sitting on 300 food per minute right now, KP.
Got it. So you're saying he has access to wood and gold, right?
Yep.
I think I know a unit that only costs wood and gold. Can we check the dock, please?
Demo ship. It's
No.
it's gotta be the demo, KP.
Can we hover on that Grand Galley, please? All right, I'm smoking what Twitch chat's smoking right now. Like, if we just get some okay, we need a little bit of food. I forgot about the food, but still, like, you need military schools on the go. Come on, it's the way. It's the only way. He's not gonna do it. I'm kidding. That unit,
With
like,
the
I
food
don't think
income
I've
he
said that
has, he
unit
can
once.
afford 3 Grand Galleys per minute.
That's true, but like, when was the last time you saw Grand Galleys in competitive? When was the first time you saw Grand Galleys in competitive?
There was a game, it wasn't on Hideout, it was one of the crazier maps, as we do have a great raid over here from LucifroN, where we had a Grand Galley. It was like forest and then pond in the middle.
I'm sorry, I can't defend it. Like, could you imagine, though, if, like, someone's fighting for their tournament life? It's a semi-finals in, let's say, theoretically, a series between MarineLorD and LucifroN. And then, suddenly, you've had this secret strategy of Grand Galleys you knew was OP for, like, 4 months, and you reveal it now. I mean, it's not going to happen, but hypothetically.
I wonder
would
why.
Well, because it's not overpowered yet. We need to wait until 2024.
But when it becomes overpowered, it's no longer going to be a hidden strat, KP.
You say that. Come on, son, let me put my old bid. I've been doing esports for a while now, LidaKor. And, well, sometimes the players all think they got a secret strategy. They hide it for a year, and they all have the same secret strategy. I've seen this multiple times. Okay, I'm going to throw out one for the Dota people. TI4, Skywrath Mage, got buffed 13 times in a row. No one picked it. Everyone went into the biggest tournament of the year, the Rebel Warlord of Dota, and they were like, Skywrath Mage. That's our secret strategy. It's kind of like Marlins at the start of this year, right? Like, no one knows how sinisterly overpowered Marlins are. Twirls moustache. Everyone picks Marlins.
Yeah, going back to this game over here, LucifroN is pushing up rivers, but you see his cavalry production essentially disappeared. In fact, he switched into men-at-arms, but now he's facing an overwhelming infantry flood here from MarineLorD. Multiple barracks on the front line now for MLord.
Yes, but if he can buy time with the boats, he can slow this down to escalate a land army, a quality land army. MarineLorD behind this, if he snakes the tech up, that's where I'm scared for LucifroN. Like, that's a big army to upgrade. He just needs to sort his gold. He can easily do that at any point. He still has access to the safe gold. Maganel, what are you doing out here? Where's your defenders? Where's your escorts?
They're nowhere, KP. LucifroN has just no standing army right now.
That's not true. He has 1 minute of 1 now.
Oh, he's trying to make this happen with demos, but oh my lord. That was just so disappointing for LucifroN. Oh, Wololo, not coming through either.
I mean, if he got that army, then he'd have one, right? Like, it almost feels like if we treat this canonically, like what's happened here is LucifroN did have an army, but then he was like, he convinced them all to jump onto boats with gunpowder and get turned into meat explosions. That's where his army is gone. The afterlife.
Oh my lord.
This is getting grim though.
He might be going into game number 3 here, KP. Population just looking grim for LucifroN. He's been trying to make things happen with demos, but it just didn't work out against the longbows, against galleys. And now he's got virtually no standing army to stop the spearmen and the longbows with.
Yeah, it's kind of just, it's awkward, right? Because like, it seems like we're joking out a bit, but it's because MarineLorD has been in control for a lot of this game. LucifroN had an amazing play to tech up, right? Yeah,
lovely
I know.
demo.
But I'm shrugging at it, right? Because it's like, it's just another drop in the oasis that is the MarineLorD power, which is now coming through with the tech up. Like, this game has been gradually going further in his kind of favor for the last 4 minutes, 5 minutes. The tech up was an interesting idea from LucifroN, but as we saw, like, the power of a Castle Age out of the Ottomans really comes in their ability to utilize military schools. That plan doesn't work if you don't have military schools.
It's also the fact that his dock was so much at the back. That allowed him to defend it, but it also meant that he ran out of fish way too quickly. He simply had no food that he could utilize to get some Lancers out and get some value from this Castle Age up.
Castle Age up that will get value. It's going to tick in about 30 seconds. There's going to be a big one. A sizable army to upgrade. Looks like we are getting some emplacements on the dock to try and reset a little bit. So LucifroN, not in his death wind yet. That's not the word. What death cry? I can't remember. It's like when you die, it's like your final thing you do. Death. Yell? Death scream?
I
Death
don't
scream?
think you
Death
yell.
Scream sounds right. Yeah, you just yell, "Get off my lawn!" And you just get stabbed in the back, right? Like, death cry? Death cry.
Yeah, that's a fair one.
Death throw. I think that, like, so much death, LidaKor. Now that is how you take down a dock without losing an arm.
Oh, man. This is just looking so grim for LucifroN. You try to find silver linings, but there is just basically none. He's got no standing army right now.
Okay, so if he's got no standing army, hear me out. Do you just go Imperial Age as MarineLorD? Because, like, it's looking tempting.
I mean, as crazy as it sounds like, if he's walled up and he feels secure, he might as well do it. Think about it this way, he does get enclosures that way, so he does get a massive eco buff from getting into Imperial. I don't think he needs it, but I would not be horribly shocked if he actually did it.
And now you see why Ottoman players hate 20-minute-plus games on Canal. That is the other military schools built far away from the primary base because he never had room for it. I mean, I'm just saying, like, you know, he could go. He's not going to go. Like, he had to invest the gold into upgrades, right? We are getting the crossbowman now. LucifroN, I mean, he's a micro god, right? We've already highlighted that. If he micros, not like a god, but like a god that eats gods, maybe he can still be in this game. Because he has got 2 mangonels, and MarineLorD is massing crossbows now. Okay, scrap that. That's Jesus.
Oh,
is it
my
me,
Lord.
or was that like 2/3 of his eco running?
That's the only place where he can get our resources, and MarineLorD knows that. MarineLorD has been pressuring the south, and he didn't see a single villager, so they have to be at the north. MarineLorD also sees that LucifroN is yet to make a farm transition as he's building these farms right now. He's got all the key pieces of info he needs to understand how bad LucifroN's position is right now.
Man, we always talk about how you have to take water control in the first few minutes to win a game, but I'm just convinced by MarineLorD's delayed water control, that's the real way to go here. Yeah, that's why he hasn't been vulnerable on the map in the way that LucifroN would have needed him to. Remember those initial nights that came out? They couldn't find any targets because if you look on the minimap, you can see MarineLorD. The only time he came out of his primary base was when he dropped a King's Palace in a defensive location. It's just a great read by MarineLorD. The way he's played his infrastructure has meant he never has to defend.
Now it's a man-at-arms switch from LucifroN, but you see on the other side we have crossbows coming in, we have men-at-arms. They do have the English extra armor as well now, and the crossbows will just make minced meat out of all these men-at-arms. LucifroN getting pushed back once again.
Oh, these knights are going to say hello to the afterlife. Come on, it's just a spear. The problem is, like, you're running away towards your new TC and 1,000,001 villages. And this is the only place that LucifroN is gathering from, by the way. So, like, if he gets pushed out of here, this is GG.
MarineLorD knows that too. He is coming up with siege engineering now. He wants to just ram down this DC, push into this one. He's facing 2 mangonels, actually 3 mangonels, and he now saw the military schools. He knows that if this ends up being long, ooh, beautiful mangonel shot, but misses the target. If this ends up being long KP, those military schools will still become a factor, but MarineLorD does have a very clear win condition for the next few minutes.
And of course, if longbows counter springle chips, surely crossbows should as well. It's going to move in to just get rid of any food access LucifroN has. That's going to be putting more crippling pressure on farmland transitions. Farmland transitions that LucifroN does not have room for. I mean, this man, every time I look up, I don't think he has more than 100 food. Now, some people will call that efficient macroing. I call that I've got no savings left in the bank, mummy. Please bail me out. Ah, yes, the classic 24-minute English ram rush LidaKor. I've seen this many a times in the Silver League. They're usually still feudal when they do it there, though.
This time it's going to be with Castle Age forces. And you look at LucifroN, he's got a couple of lancers, a couple of archers, some crossbows, some men-at-arms, but it's a similar composition for MarineLorD. Heavy on the crossbows, heavy on the men-at-arms, but numbers are just looking so much better. We're looking at 82 army against just 30.
I mean, he's about to be capped, right? Like, he's up at 180. Look on the other side, LucifroN doesn't even need that many houses. And, well, this is one way to lose your new Raxes, building them on the front line. He has at least stonewalled the south, so this is just the critical point of entry. He's even going to push in men-arms as well. I don't think you can necessarily hold this Mangonel safely. Villagers do get pulled, crossbows, few of them get taken out, but that many Mangonels, you need better shots than that. Front lines do clash. The Rams, they just need to get rid of these racks ASAP. Choke point will be able to hold. Crossbowman now trying to move in. A few men-at-arms do split off onto the wood line. That's going to hemorrhage eco for LucifroN. MarineLorD, I mean, just look at his pop. It's not moving from 180.
It is not, KB. He is just reinforcing this battle very quickly. Not much on the other side for LucifroN. LucifroN is floating 2,000 gold, but he's been lacking food for quite a while. He is able to take down the Rams, but he's losing all the army. And there's a second wave coming in here from MarineLorD.
And a lot more men-at-arms. Look at the count for MarineLorD. He's like, okay, is that your front line gone? Time to get someone that actually instantly kills Mangonels and it doesn't counter. We'll just slap them down, and I think as soon as they're dead, that'll be the GG moment, because there's no way LucifroN can hold on anymore. This is too many chunky, ironclad boys.
There it is. English, just showing why it's one of the most powerful civilizations on the map. Why one of the most popular civilizations the English are on this map as well. Taking down LucifroN over here. And it really started with that build-up of men-at-arms, as you kind of alluded to. The fact that he forced LucifroN to commit to a large amount of spearmen that became obsolete very quickly.
Yeah, this is an example of that map being played out. The way it was played out in the first few minutes is something you will only see out of like the top 15, 20 players, I'd say, in the game. Because there was a lot of pivots back and forth, right? The negotiation we mentioned, when MarineLorD builds enough men-at-arms that he's expecting more spears. But LucifroN is trying to optimize to not give value to the Lombos later, so he doesn't spam spears. So then MarineLorD reacts with more men-at-arms after he intended to originally stop, and then eventually LucifroN reluctantly has to go into those imams. It's all just this whole idea of, I make this sacrifice, now you have to do something instead. And it's nothing less than what I'd expect to see out of two of the best players in the game. But there's no denying the English look like they should be coming out ahead of this. I think they have the positive win rate in this matchup, and as a result, MarineLorD will take the lead again in this series for the second time. We've still got some way to go. It is a best of 7. And next up, Dry Arabia, as anticipated, is going to be the Malians coming out. But LucifroN picking a civ that actually has proven quite oppressive against the Malians in this tournament. It's the Delhi.
And LucifroN does love his Delhi. You look back at the previous rounds in this tournament, he has pulled out Delhi quite a few times, and he's been rather successful with this civilization. I won't go all the way back in the logs, but this is definitely one of his quote-unquote go-to civilizations. It's a standard map though, KP, and we've talked about this in the pre-show of this entire set. If you're LucifroN, you need to throw MarineLorD off here. This map is as standard as it gets, and that's just the playground for MarineLorD. Now he's up 2-1. If MarineLorD takes this map, then he's going to move on to match point. Last time these two have matched up against each other, it was a 4-1 victory for MarineLorD in the semifinals of the Elite Classic. That time, MarineLorD started 3-0. This time it was 1 apiece, but now MarineLorD with a 1-map advantage. And he does have the Malians. Malians that LucifroN ended up losing with on a similar map, Regions, in game number 1. But then again, we know how oppressive Malians can be, especially if you can't find opportunities to punish them.
Yeah, you have to keep in mind, like the flags are similar. They are green, yes, but do not mistake these civs as the same. Yes, they both get access to an attack speed or for their infantry, but the Delhi have something a bit more succulent, and it's the way they scale into the Ghazi Raiders, their version of the Sipahi early on, in a way that the Ottomans don't really match, right? And it's partially funded by the berry gathering rate in the early game, and then further funded by the ability to get access to gold off the sacred sites. That's what makes the Delhi vicious. They have a more aggressive timing than a Sipahi scaling army would. And that's why the Delhi could prove more violent for a Malian experience than even the Ottomans. And, well, if you go back to that game one, as you highlighted, the Malians lost there as well. So maybe we're looking at a 2-2 on the board. I'd be all for it. I want this series to keep on going, because what I love is when you get to the long end of these lofty series, that's when you're kind of like in scraping the barrel territory, right? That's where you see if someone has a certain civ a little bit weaker than the rest of their retinue. And that's what I want to see out of a champion, that rounded experience, not someone who just, picks French and English and makes their way to like a semifinals. I feel like I was throwing shade at someone. I'm just not sure who I was throwing shade at.
Indeed. Looks like game number 4 is ready. We will be heading into game number 4 here. LucifroN now down 1 game as we head to Dry Arabia. it is the Malians once again, and he does have the Delhi Sword to try and fight them off. Looking back at the two players' history on Dry Arabia, we had this setup for LucifroN in the quarterfinals. He played Dry Arabia with the Malians against the Ottomans, and he lost it. Similarly how he lost Regions in game number 1, of this set at least. And then MarineLorD, he actually did not play Dry Arabia in the quarterfinals against Dimu. He did play Regions though. We talked about that. He played Chinese over there. In fact, when you look at MarineLorD, actually, beg your pardon, he did play Dry Arabia against Dimu. That was a Malian mirror. So both of these players have played Dry Arabia in the quarterfinals, but both went for the Malians. This is going to be the first time that we see LucifroN try and fight out the Malians with the Delhi.
Wow. We'll see if he's able to overcome the Malians that were seen as like OP too strong before. I think their win rate has not been that impressive in this tournament so far, at least against the likes of Delhi and even to a certain extent the Ottomans. Well, we are going to the El Clasico map, the one that like probably doesn't, I'd say if you had to choose one map that doesn't provide a biased advantage to civs over another, it has to be Dry Arabia. So if we're getting down to raw stats, like you would lean Delhi favored, especially considering that LucifroN is no pushover on this civ. Curious to see how he's going to open this. I would expect it to be the Ghazi Raiders as is standard. The cool thing about going Ghazi Raiders, by the way, is if your opponent has like an exposed pit mine, if they don't want to fight you, you just go and probe that, you pressure that, and it forces them to take bad fights. The good news for MLorD fans, he got a back spawning pit mine. It makes it very difficult because if you have to fight the Malian on the front side of his base, he's going to know you're going for the pit mine behind, right? So he can then just quickly move infantry to block cavalry, and it actually remains a true fact, LidaKor, as we go on in this game, because I'm just going to be honest about it. That is one of the most disgustingly biased Malian openings I've seen for Dry Arabia. He's got 2 gold veins safely tucked in a corner.
It's as good as it gets, and it's going to be difficult to punish here for LucifroN. Woodlines aren't super great here for MarineLorD, but as you highlighted, especially for a Malian player, those gold mines are really spectacular. Looking at the Sacred Site positions, we do have that central Sacred Site fairly close to LucifroN, so I don't think playing as the Delhi that he could complain either. But it's going to be difficult to punish Malians when their base gold setup is so well protected.
Also, I just want to know, like, who a relic do I have to have adopt me as my daddy to get, like, spawns like this in my games? Because, like, I'm just looking, the more I look at it, the more I'm like, oh, what the hell? Like, it's the wood that just insulates it naturally, right? And then it's like, he's even got deer back there if he wants to, like, be a bit stringy and not have to go instantly into cattle. Like, I don't know, man. I don't think I've seen this much value in a corner for a Malian player in a very long time. The closest that comes to mind this tournament is we had that Dimu Wham mirror between Malians, where he had like a triangle of gold veins, but they were on the front side of his base. So there was like some downside to that. This is just like all thumbs up. But this is a matchup where MLorD should be on the defensive. It still favors him, but as you highlighted with these Sacred Site placements, LucifroN still has an objective to play towards of his own.
It's going to be the Tower of Victory for LucifroN. Wants to play aggressive over here, and I love this. It's a little tricky to utilize Tower of Victory in this setup because, let's not forget, Tower of Victory is mainly targeting the archers, and or at least when you play with Tower of Victory, you do want to play into archers, mass archers in the long run, and that's always challenging to do against the Malians, who do play very frequently into javelin throwers. But it's definitely the better of the two landmarks in this matchup, and probably most matchups as well. But for LucifroN, he needs to play aggressive, and the TOV will help accomplish that.
Yeah, but the TOV is for the second and third layer, right? The opening should be Ghazi Raiders. It's pretty standardized against the Malians at this point. It's just, you know, I don't know. Has LucifroN scouted back there yet? Because if he sees his backside, he may need to reassess. Maybe going for an infantry army and just controlling the mid-map is a more beneficial approach to this game. I'm just worried if you do that, the javelins are unanswered. Okay, LucifroN's gone for the I'm Delhi, you have to do things, I don't have to do your things. So why even check his corner, right? This is where I wish we had face cams, right? Because, like, I mean, you know, where's the moment, like, LucifroN just, like, thumps his head against his keyboard when he sees the gold, right?
Oh, man. LucifroN, as you said, he could very well opt to go for Ghazi Raiders to open. It's going to be a blacksmith opening, so no production buildings. as MarineLorD will spot that right away. So no production buildings, opts to go for the blacksmith first, and there's going to be a Rex coming up. So MarineLorD does anticipate Gauzy Raider opening as well from LucifroN.
It's just the most logical one to go for. Like, I do like the blacksmith. Some players historically always go blacksmiths first. Some really prioritize that first Gauzy Raider. I think what happened there is also LucifroN, I think he scouted the east side, saw the wood lines, and even though he hasn't checked the back, he at least knows that gold is more defensively oriented. So opening with a faster Gauzy doesn't serve a purpose as opposed to the better blacksmith timings. And yeah, he just got the bad news. This is the point where LucifroN just screams while shaving his head bald and goes to game 5, right? I mean, that's what I do, but that's why I'm not here.
He's definitely not going to be upset looking at those gold spots.
I mean, I'm trying to think, like, top just GG's out of nowhere. Like, for me, one of the big ones, shout out to my boy Demu when he played, I think it was it French Pass? And, like, he got no sheep in an H3, like, mirror. And he was like, he just surrendered. And it looked weird until you processed that. Like, could you imagine if we didn't talk about the gold veins in this and you just saw a GG at 6 minutes? You're like, what happened? There's so many pub games where people would have waved the white flag because of that detail.
Yeah, Dancers on the way now, Gauzy Raiders in production, as well as Archers as well. So now LucifroN is doubling down on unit production. And with the Gauzy Raiders coming out, MarineLorD does have to pull the scout here. Needs to be careful not to lose it.
We'll get it away. Meanwhile, MarineLorD, he's playing a dangerous game of death, and that he is dead. It's not really a game, guys. Death is serious, as you're about to learn from that heavy mace to the face.
Yep, there goes the only scout that MarineLorD has, and when you have an infantry-based army like that, especially the Donsos and Javelin Throwers, losing that scout is so painful. For the Javelins, you do have great range, but it doesn't really give you its full effect if you don't have that ability to scout out targets for them. Losing that scout is so painful for MarineLorD.
Yeah, but like, I mean, if you like thought what MarineLorD was saying right now, it'd probably sound like, oh, I lost this scout, who cares? I got 3 backward scout spawns, I don't need to see the map, you need to come to me. Right? Like, it's it's like as safe as can be. If he just walls the north side of his gold vein, he like creates a predictable direction for these Gauzy Raiders. Like, LucifroN's primary goal is just getting those sacred sites. He needs to force MarineLorD to come out. If you have to somehow break this base, I mean, this is going to be like some World War II Eastern frontier strategies, right? Like Zergling style. It's not going to end well.
Well, for the time being, it looks like MarineLorD is going heavy on the cattle here. He doesn't really feel a sense of urgency to be any aggressive at this point. In fact, he's just massing Donsos back at home as well as Javelins. Just going for the cattle, building things up, as LucifroN will start moving out for the sacred sites. It's pretty easy for LucifroN to pick up all these sacred sites, given that MarineLorD isn't really contesting them.
Yeah, so this is like, it's the pivot balance, like, who gets more value? Sacred site control or pit mines? I haven't done the maths. If I've got a nerd in chat that can kind of like calculate this, what each pit mine returns, I'd be curious to see like how closely matched 3 sacred sites is to like 2 pit mines. I'd still give an edge to 3 sacred sites, but that's a hard ask for Lucy to control all 3 this split at 10 minutes in the game, right? It becomes feasible at like 15 if MarineLorD doesn't take good trades.
A lot comes down to whether you wall these in. I feel like if you wall these in, you have a legitimate chance of controlling all 3. But as you said, as long as they are wide open, at the very least, MarineLorD will send out 1 or 2 units to try and decap them. So holding on to all 3 sacred sites is not easy, to say the least, for LucifroN.
Oh, he'll at least get initial control, because the upside is MarineLorD went for a really slow-moving army, and until he walls himself in, he can't come out, which is why I love to see the walls now being added. He's done north side, he just needs to address south side. And he is now playing on that D on the backside. Love to see this as well. He also does have wheelbarrow, so we're not going to lose our crap when a Gauzy raid comes in and he can't run away. But make no mistake about it, like, LucifroN needs to make some sort of pressure happen here, right? It's great he's got these sacred sites, but you probably don't feel comfortable just this timer alone. You need to poke and prod at the bear.
Yeah, sacred sites have been captured, so the sacred site victory condition was even triggered. Obviously not a big factor right now, but so many times in the past we've seen that players are like, oh yeah, it's 10 minutes, I can decap that later on. And then in a blink of an eye, we're down to like 3 or 4 minutes, and it becomes a legitimate win condition. So for now, this is fine for MarineLorD, but he needs to be cautious about this.
Yeah, and I like these archers, like their position can be really annoying here because if you position your cavalry correctly, you can always like snipe the woodworkers in the next 2 minutes. That's something MarineLorD's going to be conscious of here. Like that's always the danger when you play one wood line. You don't have a pivot point. So like we've been talking about all these upsides of MarineLorD spawn, right? The one downside is if his initial wood line gets harassed, everything is forward.
Yeah, we talked about this at the beginning, as you said. Those wood lines aren't great by any means, but he does have a reasonable army here, and you see Donso plus Javelin is a combination that's very difficult for the Delhi to deal with. In fact, Donso's actually gets some good Javelin throws even before this engagement begins.
Yeah, just a free Ghazi Raider. Those are price units. Was it 140, I believe? And, you know, the annoying part is if they get heavily injured, send them home. Scholar heals them up. Well done. Can't really heal someone that's dead because we're not Warcraft and we don't have Necromancy. So kind of annoying to kind of chip and allow that to happen. But LucifroN still has a substantial lead in army quality and mass.
He certainly does. And he's waiting for that critical mass, where numbers will just beat the compositional advantage that that MarineLorD has. That's a compositional advantage that MarineLorD does have, but it doesn't matter when you can just flood your enemy with Ghazi Raiders and archers that have been buffed by the Tower of Victory. They will get rid of those Donsos very quickly, and once the Donsos are gone, the Ghazi Raiders will deal with the Javelins. This is very much feasible for LucifroN, but you see, as we highlighted, MarineLorD is doing his best to at least try and decap those sacred sites, so that win condition does not keep going on.
Yeah, and that was a great play to play both sacred sites. If it's one, LucifroN can move from center to address it. This is going to block out the win condition and reset the timer. It's buying vital time. The longer this goes on, the more it can benefit MarineLorD because he can eventually reach that castle up. Yes, LucifroN can as well, but the gold edge, the increase is going to come from an additional pit mine, right? You don't get an additional sacred site up here when you reach castle edge to the Delhi.
Yeah, Blacksmith upgrades slowly creeping in for LucifroN as well. MarineLorD also grabbing his. MarineLorD knows fully well that this is going to come down to a single battle. What he may not know is how big this army is for LucifroN, and this is looking better and better for Lucy. I feel like the go time is approaching.
Yeah, I mean, it's either that or we wait for PopCap, but we know who's going to get there first. And, you know, this is why MarineLorD's hesitant. He's trying to win by, like, chipping 3 Ghazi kills with the Donzo spears. But there's going to reach a point where LucifroN's not going to give that anymore, right? He stopped kind of probing, and now he wants a big fight. But that big fight does occur. Unless you got a choke point on your side, you're going to lose. You see him just probing now. Spearman also in the mixer. Archers, just so much mass here. Forcing the Donzos in range. Going to be heavy losses. You throw away a few Ghazi, and it's absolutely fine here. He'll dive in. Woodline is going to be idled out as well. MarineLorD has to retreat towards the TC, towards the choke point that should help him out. But those Javelins need to work faster, harder to get rid of the Archers, because this is a fight that's going one way and it's going yellow.
It's too late for MarineLorD. He lost most of the Donsos, and the Ghazi Raiders, they are still there. Donsos are gone, and the cavalry should deal with the Javelin throwers here. This is looking like a great fight here for LucifroN, and I think we might be heading into game number 5 with an even scoreline, KP.
Absolutely. I mean, you lose all these Javelins, even if you reset his army, he's still going to have Sacred Sites, he's going to have everything behind this, but keep in mind, he's still got 50 military mass on his side. Once you lose the Javelins, you can lose villages as well. Like, this is the beginning of the end. Despite getting a god-tier spawn as the Malians, the Delhi truly, as is the mark of competitive Delhi, proved too oppressive on dry Arabia. It's just a matter of time before we see that white flag.
Malians about to go 0-2 in this series, KP. It was LucifroN who lost game number 1 with them, and now game number 4, MarineLorD falls with the Malians as well. And you cannot understate the significance of those archers picking off the Donsos. Tower of Victory buff helping a lot as well. Donsos gone, Ghazi Raiders reign supreme. LucifroN played this perfectly. Waited for one critical fight, went numbers over composition, and just snowballed this game out of control. It's once again an even scoreline.
And I'd have it no other way. These beasts really taking it the distance. Great to see LucifroN just taking chunks out of MarineLorD as frequently as it goes the other way. Much better performance coming out of him compared to the Elite Classics, where it was a fairly one-sided affair. And you just see how the practice has been paying off. We were highlighting as we're getting into like the twilights of this AoE4 before we look towards an expansion, so probably sometime soon in the future. This is where you're going to see, the peak of this style of AoE4. And I'm glad to see like people like LucifroN stepping up. Obviously, the series is not over, but like I said, compared to what we've seen historically, I think this is Lucy's best shown against MLord. And what should we really expect? Like we highlight going into it, right? Marlins, I think they are like 40% win rate against the Delian competitive on that map. Now, to decide who takes the lead in the game number 5, there'd be no other way to do it, right? It has to be a mirror to see who's the more skilled.
Oh, man. I feel like this series could easily come down to this mirror coming up, KP. After this game, you will have one home map left for each of these players. One of these two players will be at match point, and this is a mirror. Small differences make the mile. I feel like whoever secures this game will have a terrific opportunity to seal this entire set in game number 6. It is Rocky Canyon, it is the Abbasids, and it's not a map that either of these two players play very commonly in these tournaments.
No, well, and that's the thing. The key detail there is you have to play in tournaments, right? Rocky Canyon isn't in standard ladder rotation, so unless you're scrimming, you're not getting access to this anyway. So if there's a map where you can catch your opponent off guard, maybe this is it. And that's something we highlight about LucifroN, right? MLord versus LucifroN. I think MarineLorD would also admit, on average, throughout a year, he practices less than, say, LucifroN. I think he takes a bit more chill. Maybe that's a bad, like an unfair reputation he made in the first half of the year when, you know, it was like he's off playing Smash or whatever. He's playing these fighting games. But, you know, we saw the impact of that in Golden League too, right? Where LucifroN and Vortex dominated, because I'd argue they got more scrims in than almost any other player. And because Rocky Canyon's not one of those custom maps and mountain clearing, you know, I feel like a lot of people try to dodge mountain clearing, even if it does come up. We could have a very interesting spin in the second half of this series, but I don't want to take away from the MLord factor. It's going to sound a bit biased. It's going to sound like, you know, oh, why are you giving him so much like credit? But I got to say it. MarineLorD would probably admit that Abbasids was a meme sieve in his eyes and he didn't want to touch it when the game first came out. But the guy that I see nowadays on the Abbasids is like one of the most spooky players in the game. It's kind of weird in some ways. It's become like, for me, more instantly gravitated towards on him outplaying players than, say, French MarineLorD, which I never thought I'd say.
Well, we just have a couple of seconds left to go until game number 5 here. Looking at the remaining civilizations, though, KP, mountain clearing, notorious HRE map. HRE is gone for LucifroN. MarineLorD still has it. Frisian Marshes could easily end up being a French mirror at this space.
Yeah.
I don't
Which
know,
means you get
but
Chinese.
I feel like going into game number 5, game number 6 actually, mountain clearing especially, I think that's a place where I would give an advantage to MarineLorD. And then we'll be a lot smarter once we see how this mirror plays out on how, let's say, a French mirror would play out between these two on Frisian Marshes. One thing is certain, critical game coming up here in game number 5. One of these two players will move on to match point.
And then the pressure is on. You know, can LucifroN do it? Can he finally lead for the first time in this series? There'll be no better way to do it than beating one of the best in a mirror matchup on Rocky Canyon. Here we go. Straight away, that wide scout and pan. Both players should be doing this, by the way. This is one of the signature things for the Abbasids. I think it's actually, there's many reasons why the Abbasids is a top tier Civ right now, but this is one of the top reasons for me is on the opening. If you're against a non-Abbasids type Civ, you can yoink away a lot of sheep that forces them to play dangerous resources or transition farms earlier than you.
Yeah, it's a mirror matchup. We talked about this so often.
Yep.
Every single difference, every single small difference can make the mile. So even just taking away a couple of sheep from the opponent is very beneficial, especially on a map like this, where you do have very open segments. And once you get to mid-game, it's difficult to protect all those exposed sources of food. So having a bunch of extra food to work with in the form of extra sheep is immensely beneficial.
Man, I'm going to be a spoiled child here, and I'm going to make Vodka panic. But Vodka, can you open up a second PC and just give me both sheep perspectives at once? Like now that we're talking about small differences, like I'm just thinking how epic that is. So we need to check back because I think it's 8 sheep for MarineLorD. How many is LucifroN on here? Okay, yeah, so he's corralling, I think 8 back or 9 back. Lucy, I think he got slightly less, right? Okay, no more. He found 2 more additional.
It's 11 to 10, KP. That is neck and neck.
Whoa, but one difference here is like I think MarineLorD clubbed an extra sheep, his TC. So like I think they are literally neck and neck on sheep right now.
Yep. First big
All right, there you
difference
go,
maker.
guys. Come back in 10 minutes. Oh, wait, no. Come back in 2 minutes. We're getting the military wing.
Oh, this is a big difference maker, and we've seen some matchups like this in the previous rounds. Military wing, it really comes down to how much value you get out of those initial spears and archers. And in a way, it's a gamble in an opposite mirror. If your opponent goes for the same setup, then you don't get any advantage. And we've also seen how dominant economy wing can be, even in Feudal Age, if you really don't get any good value for those spears and archers. So for LucifroN, it really has to be a perfect setup with these 2 archers and 2 spears. Gold is at the front, but I'm more interested in the stone deposit for MarineLorD, which is kind of offset to the very back to the north.
And we've seen this matchup a fair few times now in the mirror where one player goes military wing. And I think I said it on our last cast together. I think there's a kind of a trinity to this, where military wing counters trade wing counters eco wing counters military wing. So kind of shows you where I'm leaning on the outcome of this feudal timing on both sides. Because what you do with eco wing is like you can efficiently go 3 TC when a military wing can only go 2. And all that military wing does is forces you to do a defensive second TC, but you're still going to go 3 TC afterwards. And the only time that the military wing works out is when you're forced to take a really almost just stupid looking TC that's too aggressive. I don't see that from MarineLorD. I see easily defendable TC placements like between that wood line for a secondary or on the stone. And there's not really much that LucifroN should be able to do about that.
Yeah, Feudal Age times identical. You see LucifroN is seeking a target for those spears and archers, but it takes a couple of seconds until they come through the map, and you see MarineLorD has started mining stone already. So by the time they arrive, they should not find any stone miners out there.
Exactly. And it's going to be cheaper, right? Because you've got the Fertile Crescent coming in. So by the time you arrive, like maybe you stop him dropping a TC on the stone, but he should be safe to drop a TC on his wood line. There's nothing you can really do in time to prevent that. But LucifroN's trying to change things up a bit here. This is an element we don't usually see. It's 2 villages being pulled. Looks like we're going to add some outposts. It's containment time.
Yeah, he needs to punish this. He needs to punish a completely undefended MarineLorD here. And he's done that very well in game number 2 on Holy Island. Getting a tower up on the berries, especially because the hunt is right next to it, means that MarineLorD is going to be cut off from easy food. And you see, second TC also won't secure extra food. For Lucy, the win condition is clear. It's all about cutting MarineLorD off from all accessible food.
Exactly. It's that third TC that can't be allowed. Check that back corner, though, because I think there's a berry bush back there. I'm praying to God for LucifroN here. There isn't a deer in the left corner as well. We don't need MarineLorD doing getting 2 outrageous spawns. Okay, kind of outrageous that he gets 2 safe berries. I don't think this tower is enough to stop. It does prevent him from getting the deer stack, but if you do the maths and you compare deer to berries, especially as a Basset player, you'd happily take the double berry over the deer every day of the week.
Yeah, it's interesting because it's not necessarily safe, at least not unless MarineLorD does some walling to secure those. You see, MarineLorD is trying to just spread out the deer over there to make life a little bit more difficult for LucifroN, but Lucy's playing aggressive here. He is delaying his second TC to facilitate 2 extra horsemen being added, and you see now, not only does he have 2 spears and 2 archers out there, it's also going to be 2 horsemen to harass those villagers with. And it's not like this is going to delay his second TC timing that much. So I kind of like this setup. He's going to have a lot of leverage to harass MarineLorD.
I mean, let's be fair. It does delay you a decent amount because if you do the maths, it's 240 resources for the horseman, but then you had to pay 150 wood for the stable, right?
Yep.
So I get where you come from. Like, if he can idle, it's worth it, right? But if we look at this format, I don't know what you're meant to idle with 2 horsemen.
I think it's more about just, once again, playing that containment game. Making sure that you cannot get that third down center on food either. Because you mentioned this. That third TC for MarineLorD, whenever it comes, that's what's critical. Where is that going to go? How is he going to secure extra food with that? And right now, MarineLorD isn't securing any food over here. No berries, no hunt.
Well, but did MarineLorD scout LucifroN's base? Because check this. Even though he can't see the horseman yet, he's prepping Spearmen ahead of time. Usually the counter to military wing is build 1 archery range, get 3 or 4 archers, you deal with the military wing, right? And then you get your third TC. But he's already getting the spearmen in. So it seems he did sniff out this stables play. It means he should be able to get that TC down more or less uncontested.
Yeah, there are still 2 archers for LucifroN, so he should be able to just hold this for the time being. But now MarineLorD is building up archers himself. He was waiting for this moment, getting the stone in, and as you said, because he does have the spears, it's going to be difficult for LucifroN to deny this DC. And once again, LucifroN isn't really in the range of that stone mine with that scout, so he's missing out on critical pieces of information, like we've seen him doing game number 1 and 2 as well.
Yeah, I can't help but think back, like, with the outpost on the berries, if that's your play, would it have made more sense for LucifroN to do something wild, like a second scout opener? Because we just talked about the lack of food, but because you're allowing half the sheep to go to the greedy player, he's not going to run out of food quick, especially because of fresh foodstuffs, right? And that's going to buy him critical time to then hop across with a TC like this before you can do anything about it.
Fair point, but I feel like down center, getting harassed over here. Spearman nowhere to be found. It gets delayed.
Oh, nice micro back. He might still lose a villager. Will not take out the horseman return, but TC's still going to go up. Kind of surprising that MarineLorD didn't have the army nearby. But I think he was thinking about like probing that north side, just dealing with anyone out there. So we'll defend it this time. Still 3 TC versus 2, and LucifroN, I think the only play now is to try and castle up.
Yep. To answer your point about, you know, maybe playing double scouts, trying to scoop up as many sheep as possible, and then playing food denial, I feel like that tower was a reaction to how MarineLorD's base spawned or how MarineLorD's map spawned. And obviously, by the time he scouted that part of the map, it was too late to take any extra sheep with extra scouts. So for LucifroN, he just played and tried to exploit the weaknesses of MarineLorD's map, but it wasn't really sufficient, I would say, because now you see he's down by a TC. He's going to try and castle, but he can't really rush this. He's going to have to wait a specific amount of time, 145, until he gets to castle. And that's plenty of time for MarineLorD to leverage that third TC.
Oh, that's the problem as well, right? Like, you can't speed that up at all. It's kind of crazy, because let's say MarineLorD was approaching a fast castle age. LucifroN would be in position to know that and do something about it with a double down army, right? The tough part for MarineLorD is I don't think he has scouting vision in the base anymore. He doesn't know when LucifroN's teching up. He might feel it by the lack of reinforcements coming in, but there's no kind of punishing reaction. And I do love this from LucifroN. There's no value really going back for the eco wing now. He's going to get the trade wing. It's not going to be the longest distance trade, but he can extend that over time. And he is going to be much quicker in that castle up. MarineLorD's probably going to be a whole minute, maybe a little bit more behind him.
Yeah, trade wing on the way here for LucifroN. He isn't even going to go eco wing at this point. He just goes trade. He did a great job harassing MarineLorD on the gold mine specifically, but you see, even with this, MarineLorD is only 30 seconds behind when it comes to the castle age timing.
Yeah, that was actually quick. I think I misaligned the drop-offs on the food. How many people did he have on food in total? Like, I think he must have that berry bush line essentially just capped. And the rack's being prepped as well, so it's going to be a men-at-arms span. Yeah, plenty of people over here. So the Ghoularms is a dangerous threat here, right? Like, LucifroN needs to sniff this out. If he does, he could try to just go, like, mass archer ranges and push in. But for now, he's just setting up his trade. Kind sir, can you please not? He might kill him. Not before he completes the marketplace, but... This is what it comes to in a Basamiris. This is the most intense piece of gameplay right now. Will the villager die? He's gonna die! Oh! Jackpot.
He did his job, though. That was his job. Get the market up. Nothing else matters.
Dude, imagine if this was like, if we got like StarCraft inspired and those were Zerg units and now it just starts eating the villager and evolves. And then you've got this Chadley, like, this werebear unit going around mauling villagers on your side of the map, just slapping them down. And Halloween's coming, that's all I'm saying.
Nice and peaceful start for Castle Age over here. Heavy on the barracks is LucifroN, but MarineLorD does have a range already, so it's not really a big deal for him to start mixing in a couple of crossbows. And now, scouting becomes a crucial part of this early Castle Age. You need to know the composition your opponent is going for. Scout does get pushed away by the Spearman here.
Yeah, and it's good to actually be getting crossbows as the defensive player here, right? Because, like, the Goulam's going to take ages to get in position. You essentially allow him to throw himself at you, you slap him away, and then you should have a stronger army for it. And keep in mind, because MarineLorD has 3 TCs, he's reaching he's reaching past that annoying point of not getting value, right? Now he's reaching into, I can afford this and it benefits me. It should allow him to outscale. Another cool detail you just saw there is the camera riders. Like, if MarineLorD peels these off and heads around, he can snipe the trade. And then all of a sudden, the trade wing value doesn't exist.
Yeah, that's a big thing, right? Getting those 2 camel riders doesn't seem like it's much, but you get them as a freebie with the military wing, and they do debuff enemy cavalry. It's not like there's much for LucifroN, but they're also fairly tanky units, and they can easily be used as like individual raiding or skirmishing units. And especially when LucifroN has that trait set up out there, they're great to just harass that.
He's sending a supporting army as well. And this is mainly because he has the archers and spears he doesn't want anymore, right? So he's going to throw them away. You might want to reinvest in spears just in case there's more knights coming. LucifroN has only built 1 so far, so just trying to match this raid potential. Second villager will get away in time, but he now knows about this. Honestly, like, I would build a ram. Like, build a ram, just send the camels inland, and then you definitely lose these marketplaces. And it's like you pay 250 to take out 200 wood, right?
Yep. It's also about making sure that the opponent does not have that trade set up. It's not like there's much for LucifroN right now, but for MarineLorD, he needs to consider what happens if he gets confined in his own base for the next 10 minutes. LucifroN might have a great trade going on. You just make sure that that trade is going to be heavily delayed.
Yes. It's like he now knows about it, right? Like, you wouldn't put these down if you didn't go trade wing, so now he sniffs out your plan. He can block it out. Oh, yeah, no, you need to go. You need to go. You are lucky you turned so quick. If MarineLorD had instantly attacked those archers, that's probably 2 traders dead. So luckily for LucifroN, he will keep most of the traders live. One of them might still go down.
At the same time, MarineLorD is going to clean up the tower. He kind of reclaims this eastern side of his base. Now has access to the berries and has access to whatever is still left out of that hunting patch. More importantly, though, these archers still keep creeping up, and they're getting closer and closer to hitting LucifroN's food eco.
You know, I know the Ghulam's like attack animation is meant to be like you swipe and then you back swipe sort of thing, but I just like to imagine a world in which, and some modder can do this for me, give them sword hands, and it's like they're having a slap fight. You know what I mean? Cosmetic ideas. Someone like Biddlen's in chat. Biddlen, are you taking note? I need these. Once again, Halloween is on the way soon, LidaKor. I know what the people want. More
I am not so sure if you actually know what the people want. I think I know what you want, but I wouldn't say that this is what all the people want, KP.
I'm a villain. I'm like, I know what you want. You just don't know what you want, LidaKor. Give the people what they need, not what they want. Nice little raid from this knight coming in, actually doing some decent damage. Look at the worker kills right now.
Yeah, I was just about to highlight that, KP. Like, worker kills, it's irrationally high for such a passive game.
Oh my god. I mean, no big fight, no critical moment. LucifroN, he looks at the clock, he says, this is way too long for Millie Wing versus Eco Wing. He waves that flag. MarineLorD proving why Eco Wing counters the Millie. Takes the lead again for the 3rd time in this set.
And you see the villager count. It was a massive differential between the 2 players, and LucifroN probably knew this. This is why he tapped out. And you look back at this game was like chess. It's small differences with the same setup for both players, and you highlighted this. Eco Wing, LucifroN wasn't really able to punish this. LucifroN knew fully well that MarineLorD was on 3 TCs. He wasn't able to make anything happen. Fast Castle didn't give him any advantage. And he was just massively outproduced when it comes to villagers and army as well. A swift strike here from MarineLorD in one of the most critical games of this set. Now he moves on to match point in a setup where he still does have HRE available for mountain clearing. I feel like this victory made the chances of MarineLorD making the finals so much higher.
Yeah, I honestly like I'm gonna stick to my guns on this. Trade wing counter eco wing counter Millie wing counter trade wing. That is the holy triangle. Respect the triangle. Go against the triangle at your own peril. I think the one way that maybe Millie wing can work is like this kind of all-in, make monkey noises and send everything to the base type play, which I think was what LucifroN was hoping for with the outpost play, but there was no maximum value, maximum pain. Maybe if he doubles down, he can like shrink the eco before it becomes a real problem and you scale. But it's a ridiculous efficiency of Fertile Crescent in that environment. Like, you can afford to be condensed TC. I think the mutation I'd like to see on this build that I highlighted in that game is you go second scout. Sure, you're behind on villager count, but if you take 70% of the sheep and then you outpost that berry bush, all of a sudden MarineLorD's game is very difficult to play, right? It's not just cruise mode eco wing. But sadly, that's not the way it plays out for LucifroN fans. MarineLorD does take the lead, and I'm sure we'll see that soon in the scoreboard. I think they're still figuring out where we're going to go next. Or no, it's already decided. We should be going to mountain clearing.
Mountain clearing it is. Oh, man. It's HRE versus the English. HRE is the go-to civilization selection for most of these players on this map, and we know why. It's an oppressive civilization. You have so many guaranteed relics to work with. If you secure the boar in the middle, you do have a crazy amount of extra food as well coming from it. Frankly, that's one of the things that the English can deny in this setup. That's one of the advantages that English could get against the HRE on this map. One of the few advantages, I should say, because once you get to Castle Age, things get very dicey for the English in this matchup on this map.
Yeah, it's the standard players HRE rushes Castle Age, and they can do that with Arkham with Deer. And you just get a few longbows out, and you try to like block each side. So what MarineLorD's going to do very early on is try to get some small palisades and pray that the flank wood lines aren't exposed. Because sometimes you get these really flaky spawns on the wood that allows people to kind of like pierce in. So there's going to be a lot of pressure coming in. But if that Castle Age ever ticks, I expect LucifroN to just like, well, he's not going to GG out now that's match point, but he's going to wish that he was the game up so he could GG out. He might play boar. I've seen a few players do this. We saw in HRE Mirror, we saw BC try that, although I as a caster try not to remember that game. But it could be really good here for the sustained aggression. And typically the cost there is that you have to pull your scout to tank so you get less sheep. I'd rather see him kind of like be a bit ballsy here, send the 8 villagers if he wants to make that type of play. Do not tank with a scout, but gather as many sheep as possible, because then MarineLorD will be reliant on a farm transition or playing dicey deer, as I like to call it, because the deer on this map tend to spawn on the flank, on the sides, or ahead of your TC. I haven't once seen them spawn behind your TC.
It is only 30 seconds left to go. The last time that these two have met in a semifinals, MarineLorD won 4-1 in the Elite Classic semis. It's not going to be a 4-1 here, that is for sure, but it remains to be seen if LucifroN can rally himself, turn this series around, and take down MarineLorD to move on to the Grand Finals. Right now it is MarineLorD with the match point, and he's looking very good when it comes to the Civilization matchup here for game number 6 on Mountain Clearing.
And regardless of how it plays out, you're right that these series are closer, and that's what I want to see as we reach towards the end of this era. Expansion pack somewhere on the horizon, people wondering what's going to happen. Dude, I'm just looking forward to like everything we know, the order potentially of the competitive scene being thrown into turmoil, like when someone just comes in and they're a professional Japanese spammer or something, right? Like, I can't wait for that. But for now, we get to marvel in the classic experience. And wow, I think LucifroN, like, by 8 minutes, we're going to know whether we're going to series number 2 or game number 7.
Indeed, into Mountain Clearing we go. MarineLorD with the 1-point lead over LucifroN. He's going to have the HRE in red. And to the right, it is LucifroN with the English right away rallying the villagers for the boar, making sure that MarineLorD isn't getting that, and also, of course, he himself securing the boar.
Yeah, and he's got another villager coming out as well. So, boar into the mill, and this will delay him getting his wood supply a little bit. But what you need to keep in mind here is, like, when you pull all the villagers out like this, the one issue you're going to run into is at home, you don't have that instant switch into wood from food like you would if you were on sheep. So what I kind of want to see here is, like, LucifroN maybe just building the council hall on the boar and then aggressing from there. It makes a lot of sense in this type of game because I think if you have to retreat at any phase in this matchup, you've already lost.
100%. It's all about the English just shutting down that early game of the HRE. If they can't accomplish that, if we get to Castle Age with a handful of men-at-arms popping out of a Burgrave Palace or a couple of knights coming out with no spears from the English, it's all over for the English. So this is all about shutting down the early game of the HRE, really securing the game in the first 5 minutes, essentially.
Mm-hmm. And he's got a lot of surplus food there, right? It's 2k food. He won't be moving away anytime soon. MarineLorD, like, you know, there are some cheeky shenanigans. Like, imagine if you dropped a Rax and sent, like, 2 Spearmen out. You'd need to bring 2 or 3, though, and that would slow down your timings. And the issue you now have is because your opponent's on ball, it kind of negates the effectivity you get from the prelate buff because of that gathering rate on food being so much higher than sheep.
Yeah,
This is mountain clearing gameplay, by the way.
just the classic mountain clearing. I mean,
Who's
hell
crap
is
at
going to
herding?
break loose in a few minutes, so...
It's fast. Like, that's the thing. Like, it looks like, oh, is this really the early gameplay at AoE4? Yeah, because the food gathering is so much higher, and that means we get to the aggressive part much faster.
Yep. You see, English doing a decent job keeping pace with the HRE Dark Age economy off the back of that boar, and it looks like the Alkenchap was going to be close to a stone mine here. Now, second TC is usually not the way to go, but you never know. Maybe MarineLorD has something cheeky on his mind.
It's an interesting idea if you can build it quick enough, but I think this council hall in the center might make it a bit dangerous. He could play the TC on the gold. That's probably the one way he can make this work. And that would insulate him on the north side, because if you look at this spawn, he can easily kind of protect himself on the south side with a few palisades, but I think the north side's got more breach points in the HRE's wood line. That's something that LucifroN could manipulate with those long-range lombos. In fact, make no mistake about it, folks. If you keep a scout on the inside here, check the depth of MarineLorD's wood lines. You can actually snipe across the wood with lombos. It's so frustrating. Yeah, like you could stand there on the left side and you're just like, yep, Kobe.
Yeah, you see there is a little alley as well to creep up in. So, a lot of angles to harass those lumberjacks from. For now, Deer has been pushed in, and you see Council Hall, by the way, is coming up right in the middle. So this is a very aggressive play here from LucifroN.
Yeah, it had to be. It's the only way to play this. Like, because otherwise you won't have enough wood gatherers at home for the opening. Like, boar, you don't need this much food, right? The opening is going to be lombos, and lombos cost primarily wood. So one thing I'm kind of a little bit worried about long-term with this Archon placement is, like, if you don't want a second TC, one downside to this is that if you ever have to transition farms, your farms are going to be away from your TC, and they're not going to be hidden behind, right? So I think there's kind of a timing here from MarineLorD where if too much pressure gets piled on, he won't be able to farm transition, and the game essentially ends. But I love this as an opening, actually. Archery range is not something we often see out of the HRE. With the superior gathering rate, he should be able to match, if not easily exceed, the lombo count.
It's a big thing for numerous reasons. First of all, archers will be faster than longbows. They can chase them down, so if LucifroN loses momentum, MarineLorD can punish. But as you said, it's the fact that LucifroN is paying full price for those longbows, whereas for MarineLorD, he's got a crazy eco with the HRE. He can start bumping out those archers, and if he gets the numbers advantage, he can even shut down this council hall just by camping right next to it. Yeah. Big difference, though, is the production speed right now. Council Hall obviously producing those longbows a lot quicker than those archer ranges are.
Yes, but this is why we see him rush on the wood. That's why the Archon Chapel gets dropped there, right? He's going to have surplus wood to work with long term. Meanwhile, LucifroN can't really match. And also, despite the fact LucifroN went for a mill, he still hasn't got wheelbarrow. So as he's sending people out into this wood line to kind of gather, it's not like he's kind of minimizing the edge the HRE get on the gathering rate, right? It's wheelbarrow non versus wheelbarrow non. That was a great way of saying no wheelbarrow. But it does matter, right? Because, like, remember, these lombos, they are better, but they do also cost more.
They certainly do. Obviously, as long as you don't have the English buff of Network of Castles, when it comes to the combat abilities, the archers kind of cancel out with the longbows, and you see MarineLorD is playing this very defensive. He knows that he needs time to build up his numbers, goes for double defensive towers, one to the south, one to the north.
This is wild. LucifroN got baited. He was worried about a fast castle age, as you rightly should against HRE, but MarineLorD never intended that. The outpost placement on the gold tells you everything you need to know. It's a defensive outpost. It's not there to defend the gold. It's actually there to defend the wood. And because he went north and these longbows are so slow, he gets the outpost up for free. There's no way of getting in now, and this is where it gets awkward. Like, LucifroN's going to be forced to probably go into Rams earlier than he wants, and that should give MarineLorD the edge to build more archers than longbow mass.
Yeah, LucifroN will have to play something very similar to what he has done in the Malian game, in where he... Oh, no way,
what?
KP. No way!
There's no wheelbarrow! There's no wheelbarrow! He's going to lose like 4 villages!
This might be the game and the set, KP. That is a terrifying amount of loss for LucifroN so early on.
He gets away with 5, but once again, wheelbarrow running away with their tail between their legs. They've got lots of food at home. But that's a crippling loss this early on in the game. And it's all because LucifroN is playing longbows grouped. right? Because of the Archer mass on the other side, he can't split. If this was any other opening from the HRE, he'd be confident to send 5 north and 5 south. But MarineLorD, just with 1 archer range, has shut him down. And now, escalating into 2, he can exceed LucifroN's army count.
This is catastrophic for LucifroN. He lost 3 wills, had another 5 idled, and his food eco, it took such a huge hit. Now you look at the archer numbers with the longbow numbers, it's getting even. Blacksmith on the way for MarineLorD.
Trip archery! Okay. Like, because, you know, I'm HRE and I can afford it, right? Oh, man. Just Holy Roman Empire gameplay, folks. You know, there's a statistic that 99.2% of Holy Roman Empire players have a blind spot on their monitor where the archer range is. So MarineLorD is in the top percentile of Vision HRE gamers.
He's playing it smart. He's doing what he needs to in this matchup, and you see it's working out well. That mobility advantage, that slight swing to pick the villagers, so valuable. LucifroN will have the network of castles bonus, and he's getting close to Castle Age himself. And frankly, I feel like the roles become reversed here now.
Yes.
If LucifroN is going into Castle Age, it is on to MarineLorD to punish it with these archers.
He needs to be fast, though, right? Because, like, I don't think he scouted any of this. He should see the armies and getting bigger, and that should be kind of an alarm bell for MarineLorD. If he just cuts production, he can, like, get there within a minute after LucifroN goes up. And I think LucifroN, this is an all-in white tower play. I'm expecting a white tower into an instant cap on the sacred site and just try to force the end of the game against a mass army of archers. But Mimp forward, 11 on a white tower. If this gets sniffed out, it might not go up.
I don't like this, KP. If MarineLorD sees this, this is game over. He's got way better numbers now, and he was just waiting for the ranged defense. Upgrade just finishes. I think he's about to move out. Wait a second.
It's too late.
He wants to wait for the second upgrade as well. He's waiting for the second blacksmith upgrade, and he's missing out on the opportunity to deny the white tower.
And this, by the way, can we do the maths on this? Because, like, the scout has, is it 125 health, I think it is, on a scout?
Yeah,
like,
something
someone can
like
math
that.
check me. It's like 125. That's important, because the reason I'm, like, mathing this out, it's 110. Check how many archers, how many longbows you've got. Like, you can kill a scout in 2 flurries. That is why he went up to 12, because MarineLorD will not step up. He wouldn't scout this, because if he comes out with scout, the superior range lets you get rid of him. And that's why LucifroN, it's a bit of a gambit, but he is a wise gambit. He gets the Castle Age. MarineLorD is nowhere near ready for a tech up. And now, if you just insta-drop a monastery, you force the win condition.
Oh, man. It is so difficult now for MarineLorD. He needs to get up to Castle Age, and he can no longer fight here. The white tower pushes back all these archers.
Oh no, the bad news! He doesn't snipe another villager either. So he at least now knows it's not eco outscaling, but I want to remind people this is not like a great position for an HRE player to scale his own eco. We mentioned that Archon already. If you check around it, I think he's already built around it, and the things he's building around it aren't farms. And he's also got to exhaust things like the stone first before he's clear. So there we go, farm transition's coming in. But it's kind of wonky, right? Like, it's not the safest position for your farmlands. You'd rather have it more retracted. And part of it is still heavily blocked out by stone outcropping. You're not mining anytime soon.
This is the worst possible time for a farm transition. You need to get up to Castle Age. You're missing out on precious time. And LucifroN has no desire to fight anymore. He just wants to stay behind. He's going to fortify this central area and just wait for you to come in. He's about to cap the sacred site.
Who would win?
On the other hand, MarineLorD needs to punish with these archers.
Oh, come on, Luke. Like, you can fight him. Kill him. I actually think if he fought, he'd probably, like, get an equal value out of that exchange. So, he at least sniffs out the Night Raid. MarineLorD now switching to Spearman, as he quite rightly needs to. Archers beginning to dive. Looking for some trades here. Lombos yet to be upgraded. LucifroN actually hasn't started the upgrade at all. Looks like they're just throwaway units. He just might mass knights here. Where do you go from here, man? The MarineLorD, he knows he needs that tech up. Where's he left room for the Regnants? It should be here, right next to the Relic. And that's one of the cool things why HRE is so popular on this map, is you tech up, you instantly pick up to your Relics. That's a lot of gold, but there's that Sacred Site time we talked about. And that's also going to be free Relics guaranteed going into the English hands. Almost matches the HRE's benefit from Regnants. I don't like this! This timing! Knight's coming! He's only got 2 spears. MarineLorD? If LucifroN realizes this, Oh my god, this idle time is huge. So, am I the only one who feels like Lucy, like, it's one of those situations where you're ahead, but you maybe don't realize how ahead you are? Because, like, we can see it's only 2 spears, right? He doesn't know it's 2 spears. That's... It would have been expensive for LucifroN, but I think the idle time would have been worth it. In the meantime, he's going to cut off a few extra archers here. So Longbowman now being thrown away. Tech Up is on the way with 10 villages. Upgrades are now come through for LucifroN. It looks like he is stepping back into longbow production, but on such delay, it feels like you've just thrown away a big chunk of longbows and not really gained anything for it.
It's very painful for LucifroN, especially because there is still almost
Oh,
9 minutes until the Sacred Site win condition.
Oh man, he bait the spears out, so he's gone in again. He's once again idling him out, man. It's crazy to think, if LucifroN had just dove 4 knights onto 2 spearmen, this would already be over. But MarineLorD is getting thrown a lifeline. It's a costly one, though. That heavy delay for him is a stinger. And in the meantime, the Sacred Site getting closer to 8 minutes remaining now. LucifroN looking like he's going to go mass Lombos and turtle the site.
He needs to turtle this. On the other hand, MarineLorD, he needs to think about Imperial now. He won't break that central choke point, that strength fortified position with just trebuchets. He needs some bombards out here. He will get the relics immediately into the Regnate's Cathedral, which will buff his eco quite a bit. But that clock is still ticking. And if you're LucifroN, you probably start massing Springolds quite a bit. Obviously, they would lose out against Culverins once MarineLorD gets to Imperial. But all you gotta do is just buy time here. Make sure that you don't lose that White Tower.
You're ambitious today, aren't you, LidaKor? After what we've just seen, is like, if he gets Imperial, it's like, well, maybe in next game he can get Imperial. It's a tough ask in this game right now. He's definitely got enough gold. The farms go unharassed long enough, sure. But, like, here's the thought, right? If you just rushed Imperial, by that current math, it's going to take you, what, 5 minutes?
I mean, I don't say it's easy. I'm just saying that without Imperial, he won't break that central fortified position with the White Tower. Trebuchets will never work here.
But the tough part is if you now try to rush Imperial, now, even with your food now going up to 800, by the time you get up there, there's like 4 minutes left on the clock. And we've seen what happens at that stage, right? People just pull everything to the Sacred Site and they block you. Ah, man. This is such a tough position. MarineLorD is at least getting a massive crossbows together. We should be seeing a Siege Workshop soon, right? Like, you need to answer this. You need to answer it fast. And we've got to remember, it's a White Tower, so he can repair it and it doesn't cost stone.
Yep. And it does give him the network of castles aura as well, so fights underneath will be even more costly for MarineLorD. This is a nice cleanup over here to the south, picking off a couple of longbows. MarineLorD might be flirting with the idea of trying to hit the starting eco of LucifroN, just create a diversion. And he might very well be able to do this. He's got decent numbers advantage.
It's like a tough one because you're still mass range. So like the danger here is remember that White Tower is also a Siege Workshop with double production speed. So the thing that MarineLorD needs to be careful of here is if he commits a dive and a Mangonel comes out, his game is over.
Yeah, he wants to go into Man-at-Arms. I don't know about this, KP. Not under the White Tower, unless he goes heavy on the Rams. That's the only way I can see this work out.
I mean, it's logical, right? Like, your opponent start playing Men-at-Arms, he's a beefier, but you get the bonus heavy damage. Like, long term, it's something you win, but you need to reach scale. And you also have to worry about that attack speed that kind of negates the full value you get. In fact, I don't think we've got it, but if we can check, we got, like, network of Citadels researched? I doubt it. Yeah, I feel like people don't really rush it.
I honestly don't think it matters much either. Yeah. It's only a handful of units. It's all about that fortified position. If MarineLorD gets some siege out here, 4 or 5 Rams, he could take this down, I feel. It's not like LucifroN's army is anything powerful in the middle right now.
Yeah, but he doesn't have siege engineering still, right? So that's
I don't
30
think so.
seconds to research? Nah, so it's going to be Siege Workshop. Double siege into Trebs. Yeah, so he's going to go like, he should be able to get 5 or 6 Trebs before this really gets like super pressure point for him. That should be enough to start breaking the White Tower, especially considering that LucifroN, I don't think he has a single villager sitting out here.
I would have much preferred Rams, though. I feel like the problem with the trebuchets here is that you fire from a distance, you can repair against that, and you can buy time against that if you're Lucy. If you dive this with the army you have for MarineLorD, plus 4 or 5 Rams, I think he could have taken this middle part.
The problem with the Ram play, though, is like there's a few Men-at-Arms, and your army's lightly armored. So if you dive the White Tower, you get eviscerated. It's a 20 garrison building, right? And it's very tanky. It's like, I get where you come from the Ram play. Earlier on would have made sense, but at this stage, it's like you're going to lose the Rams. And if you lose the Rams, you have no way of sieging it down because you're mass ranged, and you can't then fall back to trebuchets as a secondary option because there'll be no time left.
No, this has to be an all-in in one way or another. But looks
I
like
this.
Looks like MarineLorD opted to go with the Trebs.
Yeah, if he kills the Monastery, this is really good as well, because it removes a lot of gold, which is going to stop this happening. LucifroN now going into siege. And it's the Springles. They're both doing Springles as well. Like, I love this. It's the mirror on the wall moment.
LucifroN will have the network of castles to buff those Springolds with. But you see, he isn't really able to do damage to those traps right now. He's able to push them back, however. And this is buying precious seconds for LucifroN.
Like, that's such a big pushback. Look how far they've walked off. It's going to be 30 seconds before they're attacking again. And, like, what? You haven't even started attacking the White Tower. That has a substantial amount of HP, isn't it? Is it 5k? I'm pretty sure it's 5k.
Yeah, it's 5k.
That's like what Trebs do. I think it's 350, I want to say. No, that sounds too low. It's 450, right, with proper Trebs, not the baby Mongol Trebs. So on attack speed, it's like 10 seconds per attack. Yeah, so there you go. So he's going to do... so you get the ranged resistance, I think? No, because it's all siege. So yeah, it's a pure. So he's going to do 425 damage, and it takes about 10 seconds to attack. Like, you need 4 Trebs, and you need them fast. Oh, man, this is... He's going to be forced to ape under the White Tower, isn't he?
I think so. He has to. Problem here for MarineLorD is that while he's not attacking, LucifroN is getting more and more time to build up the Springgold numbers. Springgold's looking a lot healthier now for LucifroN, and he even has the attack buff from the White Tower.
If you're foolish enough to come in range before you're ready, that is. Mangonel? Magano.
LucifroN is doing such a good job holding this. He really isn't allowing MarineLorD anywhere close to the sacred site. And MarineLorD knows that he's got one shot at this. Problem is that it's getting increasingly difficult to make this happen as LucifroN gets more and more time to build up his forces in the middle.
Yeah, it's like... His men-at-arms count isn't that scary yet. If he was at 25, he could commit to this. You know what would be like a crazy play? Oiling or... Nah, he's not going to get one. No one builds anymore. But like, if that was there as well, like somehow that was the cherry on top, there's no way you break this. It's impossible. It's just, man, these two Trebs, I think like maybe he should have went for the Rams because he would at least use them, right? The fact that Trebs haven't been able to do anything has just made this a GG. Man, what a game.
It's tough to say. It's really tough to say. MarineLorD wants a keep. Look at the stone, KP. He wants to do a kamikaze keep drop.
But like, what does that do?
Probably create a stalemate. If you mutually destroy each other, you have a keep in the middle. If he can decap the sacred side, it makes things even. I don't know if this is going to work. I don't think it will.
So if the keep gets Mongol pack-up technology and goes on the sacred site and decaps it.
No, this got to be you drop the keep and you dive, like he's doing right now.
I think your word was too long there. Get rid of the it's you die. This is... Man, like, honestly, if LucifroN sees this coming, I'd love to see him just pump a Mangonel out of the White Tower at double speed, right? Because the Manga comes out, and then, like, you create a choke point for your opponent. He sees it early. Villagers reveal the plan. Ring-a-ding-ding. He's got a minute. It's do or die. MarineLorD looking to move in. Men-at-arms going to pull back a little bit. Wolf fully engaged now. Longbows firing out. Springles trading against each other here. Micro's going to be critical. LucifroN slightly behind on military cap. He does have the attack speed buffer. Heavy hit onto the Longbows via the Mangonel. Springles still haven't targeted out just yet. Finally, it's going to be taken down. Keep trying to be rushed up. 30 seconds away from a victory for LucifroN, and so many Longbows remaining. He's going to have to dive the Light Army, and the Light Army cannot stand against that. The White Tower is good enough. LucifroN looks like he's going to get us to a Game 7.
It's just too little too late. He cannot decap the sacred site. He cannot even start the decap in time. He's picking off those longbows, but as long as he doesn't have a unit on the side, it's not going to work out. And even with the keep complete, it is just insufficient for MarineLorD. We will be going into a game number 7 over here in the first semifinals.
Get them all in there. Celebrational final photo with the winner of game number 6. MarineLorD says, everyone, pack them in. This is a wide camera angle. There's no doubt the end outcome here. Not enough troops to park on the sacred site. Villagers to keep the Springles up as the MVP to block it entirely this whole time.
Wait.
No,
he's still holding on to this. 2 more men-at-arms on the sacred site.
You believe a bit too much. You're half on the hopium right now, LidaKor. This can't happen. Surely. Springles. They got rid of the mangoes. Village
He needs to move on to the side. He needs to move on to the side, KP. He's holding at 1 second.
Just drive around. Don't stop moving.
I cannot believe this.
Right now. This is it. 1 second. MarineLorD. He has more men at arms on the way. But the villager lost alone. Could just decide it one way or another. That has to be it. More crossbows come out from the Council Hall. The Council Hall in perfect position to dictate this game from start to finish. And the final wave of villagers on their way in. I say, hey, this looks fun, guys. Can I join in as well? This looks great. I mean, you just like, you fall asleep here. Oh, that's so cool.
I cannot believe this timer is stopped at 0.
How does maths work? Relic, yes. There we go.
You cannot fault MarineLorD for trying, but holy smokes. What an ending to game number 6 here, KP.
You wanted to believe. Many wanted to believe. I'm going to be real. Like, as epic as that would have been if it turned into a decap, even if he decapped it, he would have been 20 villages down as the HRE. So I love the fact that MarineLorD, you know, he tries to make a chocolate cake out of a mound of crap, but at the end of the day, like, your cake is still made of crap. But the good news is, we get a game number 7.
It's so weird to look back at this, and obviously it's easy to be smart in retrospect. But if we didn't see a single trebuchet from MarineLorD, just 4 men at arms, I think he would have been able to do this.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's more like he built those trebs, and the trebs actually done nothing. So, like,
Yep.
imagine it this way: if he spent that, was it 600 resources, remember correctly, on Springolds, right? He would have had Springold Mass to go earlier. If he'd spent it on an additional Mangonel or 2, he would have smashed the remaining troops. He would have had some remaining men at arms. Like, he'll be feeling it as well. Sorry, it's 550, but like he'll be feeling it as well. Like, those trebs were a worthless investment in the end. They did not do what they were meant to. He had to pivot. But I'd like to like highlight that more as LucifroN doing a great job of forcing that pivot, the MarineLorD just choking and not doing what he needed to. His plan was good. It's just LucifroN was prepped for it. And that, by the way, is the power of the White Tower. As I highlighted, it's not just a castle. You're English, so it's a production building. It's 2 production buildings.
And it looks like we will be finishing this set with a mirror matchup once again. Second mirror in this series, it is going to be with the French on Frisian marshes. MarineLorD, it's one of his favorite civilizations. He's been one of the best, if not the best, French players when it comes to the civilization being played in the entire world. On the other hand, you look back at the last 1 year, LucifroN has been one of the most oppressive French players out there. Probably the single best player when it comes to microing small groups of knights and being able to leverage that harassment potential.
Let's align this the correct way. This is the best French player in the world versus the second best French player in the world.
And you don't know which is which.
I mean, like, a lot of people will argue MLorD has a slight edge, and I think he has more, like I said at the start of this cast, he has a more kind of systematic approach to his gameplay, whereas LucifroN is kind of like a bit more sporadic and unpredictable with what he does with the French, and that can pay dividends at times. Something that comes to mind is like on Dry Arabia, he was the first player to regularly start doing the TC hugging the edge of the map to prevent flanking attacks in French mirrors, and other players started to follow suit with these type of dynamics. So like those are the type of things that can get him ahead. Frisian Marshes is a bit of a wild map for that as well, because of the way that you can extend TCs. But I don't know if this map has enough question marks around it to like bamboozle MarineLorD, right? If we turn this into a pure, concentrated, meta style French gameplay, that's where I would give MLorD an edge.
A lot will come down to those initial moments of the game once again, even more so than maybe in the case of Rocky Canyon in game number 5. Just think about this. With the French, you know the layout of the map because you know where the markets spawn. This gives you a very good idea of where the sheep will spawn. And in this matchup, especially when it's going to be knights versus knights, whoever misses out on the sheep will have a very tough time sustaining that. It really could come down to those initial moments of scouting and taking the sheep.
Hold on, did you say we know where the trade is? I'm going to speak French to you right now, LidaKor, but are you familiar with Le Coq?
Not again, KP. Not again.
No one wants some Chamber of Commerce gameplay? Okay, imagine if in the deciding game for a series, it's not going to happen, but like, in fairness, it's like not the worst idea because if your opponent's going to mass knights, like sure, just mass spears, but like you still get out mobilized when you go long range. Dude, I keep wanting it to win. I like, when was the last time? Like we've done this earlier with something else. I said, when was the last time we saw it win? When did we last see a Grand Galleon competitive play? Like, when did you last see Chamber of Commerce win a competitive game of AoE4?
Probably never, and, it makes me wonder why.
Oh man, like I remember when the patch like dropped and they made some change. They made that change to it where it passively produced traders. And I remember like I was like, this is terrible. You're giving up night production. It's gonna be terrible. And then I was like, I went and watched Beastie's patch video, and he's like, I think this has a lot of potential. He's messing around with the stream, and I was like, maybe there's something here. And then I just watched like people try it and it fails. Like, maybe next time. Chamber of Commerce needs to give 2 traders. It's weird, right? Because I think if Chamber of Commerce instantly spawned a trader when you complete a tech, it actually would be good. That change would make it
Chamber
really
of
strong.
Commerce instantly
Was
spawned
commercial.
5 tactical nukes, maybe people would use it instead
That's
of the School of
true.
Cavalry.
Dude, you know what it is? Chamber of Commerce, so it can win French mirrors. It should, like, whenever the traders die, like they put gunpowder in their trading pouches, so they just explode. There you go. Land demo ships. I've solved the French mirror, guys. You're welcome. I feel like every discussion me on balance leads back to essentially some form of demo ships returning to the game.
Land demo ships, you mean demo carts? That would be a fun unit to play around with.
Yeah, like so someone said tradelings because like you can't call them like Bane trades, right? Because that's too obvious. Trader Kazis might be another one. Maybe like that on like maybe a different new civ gets that. Wink, wink. Dude, I'm just like, I'm so excited for these new civs, man. I honestly like I'm looking forward to seeing how, like, could you imagine, right? That flag behind you could have been one of these French picks on Freezing Marshes. Then what would we be talking about? Then how would everything play out? Mind melt.
All right, as a reminder, folks, this is only the first of the 2 semifinals. Right after this one, we have another big classic coming up, B versus Beastie. Once again, a matchup that has been played as the semifinals of the Elite Classic back in May as well. So a lot of action coming up today. And of course, tomorrow, we will have the 3rd place match and the grand finals.
Oh, yeah, baby. And I noticed a lot of people talking about commerce in a different way. I've been talking Chamber of Commerce. Some people have been talking commercials, which is why this is a great segue into our sponsor. We don't have one, so why don't you do 2 things simultaneously? Drop a sub, which is going to support EGC to create tournaments like this, and also block those bloody annoying commercials that we have no control over that Twitch rams down your throat. All for the low price of you either have Amazon Prime and it's free, or $5, even less depending on where you're in the world. And let's be honest, we're live for practically almost every weekend for the next 2.5 months. Definitely a good bang for buck there.
Indeed, into game number 7 we go. It's a French mirror on Frisian Marshes. The winner of this game goes into the grand finals of the EGC Call to Arms. MarineLorD had a 3-1 lead. LucifroN evened things out on Mountain Clearing. And now it's an even Steven, and it's a French mirror, KP.
Wouldn't have any other way. The 1st place French player versus the 2nd place French player. These are your 2 best Frenchies in the game. One of them is even French in real life. The other one just one country away. I wouldn't have this end any other way. In its purest form. Probably the last and most pure tournament we're going to get before we get expansions, right? Because the next 2 tournaments aren't just your classic vanilla AoE 4 1v1s. This is how it should be decided.
Indeed. Once we have this event complete, we do have an Empire Wars event coming up, and, after that, we're getting pretty close to that time where the DLC might end up popping out, so this is the domain where we won't see a quote-unquote classic tournament with just these civilizations for essentially never again.
Oh no. What is happened to my sheep? MarineLorD, did you actually get enough in return? He missed easy sheep right next to his TC. We need to check in on him right now, because I think LucifroN might have just nabbed an edge here. What is that? What is that?
Oh, that's so disappointing for MarineLorD. Especially on this map.
Sorry, I was meant to be sheep noise. That was a horse noise. Like, what, can we check his scouting pan? I think he literally dove south immediately and missed everything. He's still got more sheep at home. Like, he hasn't gathered the ones on the left side of his base. Oh, no, no, no.
That's catastrophic for MarineLorD. It's a mirror matchup. It's especially on this map where it's very punishing to miss out on food. It's such a momentum-based map with all the shorefish around, with these civilizations as well. It is just such a pain to miss out on all that sheep. And for LucifroN, this is as good as it gets. He couldn't have asked for a better start.
I mean, would you rather have 80 bounty or 8 sheep right now? Like, I'm kind of torn here. I think he still gets like 2 on return because he's got. You see that one near the berries, pretending to be a berry bush. And LucifroN already knows. He's like, this is a lofty amount of sheep to be walking home with. Something's happened here. So at least recover and get. I think 10 will be his final number. Maybe 11. That is a smart sheep, by the way. Not smart enough to trick MLord though. He's like, if I stay still, he'll think I'm a tree. Very fluffy tree. Oh yeah. School of Cavalry. Looks like LucifroN was later, but with a 5th person on, they should more or less mirror their timings. MarineLorD might have like, I think he's actually going to be behind by maybe 4 seconds.
Yeah, that shouldn't be a big deal. It's more about the fact that when you look at the amount of available backup food, it's a different story. MarineLorD also opted to go for Wheelbarrow a little later than LucifroN. LucifroN has it complete by now, whereas MarineLorD is just now researching that deck.
I'm a little bit disappointed, to be honest, MarineLorD. You didn't get as many sheep. You clearly need to pad your economy with trade, but, you know. Sadly, not today, LidaKor. Not today. We're never going to get it. But something to keep in mind, a knock-on effect now, is to kind of look about fishing. And one thing I will say is both of them do not have many ponds nearby. But the reason LucifroN's gone out so early, look at the wood lines. He can fish very safely. MarineLorD cannot.
It's also a little bit of a gamble here from LucifroN, but this is what I like to call a smart gamble. Sure enough, this could be easily punished by MarineLorD's knights, but MarineLorD is yet to field his first knight out there. And as long as he doesn't have any of those out, this is just an extra source of food for LucifroN, a very good source of food as well. And in a mirror matchup, it is a difference maker. I love this move from LucifroN. Means that he's really going to leverage those spawns a lot quicker than MarineLorD will. And you see, he's actually keeping that scout all the way at the front, making sure that he knows when the first knight is moving out.
Yeah, and he's just going to follow him because like, you can't kill the scout, right? So he just keeps eyeballs on. He'll know exactly when he needs to pull villagers away, say, from the fishing. And I think he's already done that prematurely. Curious to see who's going to try to add in the racks first.
It's always a tricky choice because, especially at the highest level, if you add a Rex and you cannot keep track of those knights with your spears, you will get just raided to death. As you see, villagers will be pulled back.
That was great. Do you see that? Like, he pulled the scout south to block the charge so that he wouldn't have the extra movement speed to gap close. If he didn't do that, you're probably going to see LucifroN lose 1 villager. Now, instead, it turns into a massacre the other way. Half the HP of the first knight already gone. So that's a nice edge for LucifroN, especially when you consider that he needed that because he had to pull the villagers that far back from fishing.
Yeah, such a lovely move here by LucifroN. 2 knights out there to meet with just the one from MarineLorD. MarineLorD has the second one moving in. LucifroN also opted to go for the mining upgrade. That is also a bit of a difference between the 2 players right now. And of course, having that shorefish available as well for LucifroN, not so much for MarineLorD, is also something that makes a difference. And you see, MarineLorD is starting to deplete the sheep under his TC. LucifroN isn't going to have any issues with that anytime soon. He's been consuming the shorefish, and he also has a lot more sheep to work with.
Yeah, he's like, well, I can fish easier, and I've taken your sheep as well. Smiley face. You know, like, you know where that mining camp upgrade would have been more useful, LidaKor? Chamber of Commerce. Wheelbarrow too?
You love this Chamber of Commerce thing, so like...
Dude, I'm just trying to bait everyone to go do it and lose so it gets buffed.
No. I feel like you just need to be relegated to casting Copper League matches, so you actually see your Chamber of Commerces.
Copper League, like it's such a crap landmark. We need a new lower tier than bronze. Shout out to my Copper boys. We'll call the Pope on MarineLorD. Looks like he blinked first. He went for the rack, so we are getting Spearman now added in. This is going to give LucifroN mass advantage in terms of Knights, which is dangerous if you remain too defensive, because like eventually you're going to have to come forward. He does have that safe gold, but if that ever gets depleted, he's going to have to come out of his base, and that's when like more Knights will be an edge for LucifroN in these engagements.
Yeah, spears out there. MarineLorD, oh, looks like this fight is going to be taken by LucifroN. Takes down some of these spears, and you know, you can heal those Knights back up once you have Chivalry, but those Spearmen do take permanent damage. Nice little kill out there for LucifroN.
You know what that is? It's like, let's do CS2 references because it just came out. That's like, you know, someone's got an AWP holding an angle, and then you ego chalice 5 with Negevs, right? Like, you have so many Knights that Spearmen can't stand against you. Like, they're your counter, yes, but if you have less than there are Knights, you're going to lose that engagement every time. So just great read by LucifroN, as MarineLorD hasn't reached that critical mass to defend yet.
Only villager kill that we had so far was from MarineLorD, so he does have a 1 villager lead right now. But look at the blacksmith upgrades, KP. LucifroN, he's been applying pressure, but behind this, he's been slowly pulling ahead when it comes to the quality of his economy.
Well, neither of them have a blacksmith yet, right? Because like they'll get the ore upgrade. You mean the eco, right? Like the eco side. Yes, that is a big deal. He's gonna need that because of the way he's like hemorrhaging a knight here or there and a villager as well. Oh, nice little cheeky read there, actually. Outnumbered initially, but then he just checks the health bars and knows that's a fight that MarineLorD can't take. Like, we're not in Chivalry territory. We're like 7 Knights off that being viable.
Yeah, we're getting close to that Chivalry territory, at least for LucifroN. Not so much for MarineLorD. MarineLorD actually opted to just play defensive and go for a second TC. LucifroN has seen this. He sees the stone miners. But it's not just about getting the stone. It's about making sure that that second TC spot is at a valuable place. And LucifroN will now try to box MarineLorD in, make sure that it's difficult for him to get an efficient down center going.
Like, let him have the TC go into his base. That might be the way for LucifroN to play this. Instead, he tries to take the clash, and that is a bad exchange. So much damage hit his way. No Chivalry either, so TC goes up. It looks like he's going to peel one of those Knights off now, but like, imagine if he just sent 3 of them north side and idled the woodline, right? Because like, there's no realm in which you stop this TC going down against that many spears. It's just too much mass for you to get through.
Yeah, that's a fair point. LucifroN hasn't really been using his mobility so far. Now he's mixing in some archers. He is also grabbing Chivalry, so he is going to have that advantage of healing the Knights, but now he is going to be forced to keep picking villagers, because otherwise he will start falling behind. And you see a lot of spears out here for MarineLorD, very defensive game, and LucifroN is struggling to do eco damage right now.
Yeah, but I like the archer switch in this circumstance, because like MarineLorD has a break where he has no Knights, right? Because he had to throw them away. There is a realm in which he goes back Knights now that he has access to more fishing. So that's something to like keep an eye out for. If he sees this archer mass before it builds up, he can counter it with his own Knights. One thing I do want to see, yeah, there we go. Blacksmith is the thing that's been missing this whole time. That's instantly going to give him the melee tech upgrade, which even lets him fight up against the spears with Knights easier. And it's now more value as a building because you want to get the steel tip upgrade for your range units.
Yeah, he needs that steel tip upgrade quickly. You see, MarineLorD is now only on spears. It all comes down to how quickly you get rid of those spears and allow those Knights to really do the work for you. Now MarineLorD is also grabbing those eco upgrades. A lot of these Knights are still heavily damaged, so you gotta be cautious diving into the eco here.
Yeah, and the walls are going up at home. So like now, LucifroN, this play to go into archers, like he had to, right? Because if you stay just Knights and the walls go up like this, you have no play anymore. Like you're essentially just playing this classic, I know one unit, A-click build, which is not going to work at this level of play.
Yeah, I love these walls from MarineLorD though. He's understanding that LucifroN's best angle to attack from might be from the wood line. So getting these walls up means that it's very difficult for LucifroN to do any damage here, actually.
Wow, wow, wow. He's like, well, I can burn through. I mean, yeah, but like, by the time you burn through, I don't think you want to burn through, you know what I mean? The archers aren't here yet. If he times this right and reveals them after the spearmen commit in a bad position, it's going to give him a push through. But instead he says, let's just click in. Screw it. Get him off the gold. That's cool, actually. By getting him off the gold, it's going to prevent him going into Knights.
Yeah, it's not like MarineLorD was producing many Knights anyways.
Yeah, only 2. He can't afford anymore. He's just like he's doing the French Oliver Twist, like, please, sir, please, give me some more. If he had a Chamber of Commerce, he could trade for that gold, LidaKor. Okay, that's the final COC comment I'm going to make this game. I promise.
Range defense coming in here for LucifroN, despite MarineLorD not having a single archer. This is exclusively just to minimize the effects of that Dow Center fire. And now Siege Engineering on the way for LucifroN. He feels like he's on a timer, and I feel like if he starts getting Rams going, he could easily punish MarineLorD here. MarineLorD's army is very underwhelming.
He's building horsemen. This is not because he necessarily wants to, it's because he has to. Once again, he's, please, monsieur, I need some more. He's got 99 gold, dude. Like, that hurts me to look at. It's like, you could have one more night right now. Just get 1 gold. Just a tiny 1 gold.
It's so painful for MarineLorD. The army value is basically half of what LucifroN has.
Oh, but LucifroN pulled the whole army. He's gone back in gold. That's really important here because, like, you saw the blacksmith drop there. MarineLorD didn't have any tech upgrades yet. He's now going to get the gold, which is critical. He's going to need that melee defense upgrade, the ranged upgrade. It's the only way he's potentially going to hold. But the dive's going to come in. LucifroN with a huge mass of knights here. Into the spearman he goes. Just baiting in force. The archers get their value. Trade out's going to come in. A few villagers running for the high hills because they are seeking shelter. There is no shelter here. And the spearman, man, this is brilliant from LucifroN. He uses his own opponent's blacksmith against him to allow the archers to inflict maximum pain. And now the knights, there should be enough to see this army away.
Yeah, lovely fight over here for LucifroN. He's taking down everything that MarineLorD has. And MarineLorD, spearman gone, knights gone, nothing else. Rams can come in now for LucifroN.
Yeah, that's it. And you know why this happens? Because MarineLorD went for a spearman raid. He sent, what was that, 9 spearmen across the map? Imagine if they were here right now. That in conjunction with the fact that once that blacksmith goes down, MarineLorD signs his own death warrant here. This is pain territory. MarineLorD needs to, like, resurge spearmen at a ridiculous rate. He can't easily afford to get into knights. His food is suffering. He's blocked out of one of these fishing ponds. There's too many archers, man. I think this is just rams into TC down, and then you're constricted in your base. Like, outside of some weird pocket economy play, I don't know how MarineLorD gets back.
If this TC goes down, there goes the villager lead from MarineLorD as well. These villagers will never make it back to the base.
I mean, there's not enough room for them all in here anyway. And there's no way the spearmen are going to defend against this many archers. He'll wrap around to get rid of the one pesky knight. Ram now in onto the town center. MarineLorD's tournament life on the line here. Whoever wins this will make it to the grand finals. And it's all looking up for LucifroN right now.
So much idle time on these vills, KP. And let's not forget, MarineLorD beat LucifroN 4-1 in the semifinals of the Elite Classic in May. And LucifroN looking very sharp in this set here. Very close to securing this game, possibly. Town center is going to be gone. Villagers inside will fall. And so many other villagers are still idled out. There goes the entire villager lead that MarineLorD had.
That's it. That's the series. That is it. LucifroN will take out MarineLorD, his biggest threat, to make it to the grand finals of Call to Arms. What a series. What a game, LidaKor. What a play out of LucifroN to give MarineLorD the rope to sign his own death here.
LucifroN did not lead once in this set, but at the very end, it was always MarineLorD with the score lead. Yet LucifroN turns this around off the back of that crazy previous game on Mountain Clearing, and now just a clean French mirror here. Takes down, we talked about this in the pregame, one of the best, if not the best French players on this planet. French versus French, mano a mano. He takes him down, and LucifroN will become the first grand finalist of Call to Arms.